So welcome to today's AZTurboCourt e-filing training. My name is Stephen Kimmelman with Intrasys. We are the makers of AZTurboCourt. And in today's e-filing training webinar, I'm going to be covering pretty much everything you need to know about e-filing in the Arizona courts through AZTurboCourt. And so you will, we'll cover really, we'll start off by covering just sort of working with your AZTurboCourt account, your firm's account, your individual account, and then I'll jump into focusing on creating filings that are initiating a new case. From there, we'll switch over to focusing on filing documents into existing cases. We'll cover things like e-payments, e-service, tips and tricks along the way to make e-filing more efficient for you, reporting, accessing financial information, things like that. I see there's one question. Let me take a quick look. There's a question, is there video? You should be seeing my screen right now. There's no video in terms of seeing each other's faces, seeing my face or seeing each other's faces, but you should be able to see my screen. If you're not seeing my screen, please let me know. Okay. With that, let's go ahead and take a look at the software. Okay, so what we're looking at right here is the AZTurboCourt Filer Portal. Now, this is the a testing and training environment, hence the red warning sign you see there at the top. But this looks very similar to what you will encounter when you are in production. And I'm actually going to be switching back and forth between a couple of different screens, because one of the other things I'll be covering in detail during today's training is the differences in the filing requirements of the different courts within Arizona. And so in order to really have you understand those filing requirements, I'm actually going to just do some screen comparisons and go back and forth. So for example, when you're initiating a case, let's say in Pima Superior Court, their requirements are different than when you're initiating a case, let's say in Santa Cruz County or Yavapai County. Or for example, if you're filing documents into an existing case in, let's say, Maricopa, their requirements are different than if you're filing into an existing case, let's say in Pinal or in Pima. Okay, so I'll be doing these back and forth screen comparisons as we go through this. And so let me just get to this other screen as well. Okay, great. Okay, so first and foremost, for those of you, because I know we've got a wide audience in today's training, some of you have some familiarity with AZTurboCourt. For some, this is the first time you'll be using it. So let me just set up sort of from the beginning how this all works. Your firm will need to have an AZTurboCourt account in order to use it for preparing and submitting filings. It's very fast and easy to do that. There's no cost for doing that. And then whoever sets that AZTurboCourt account up for your firm, they can then begin adding users to your firm's account. You can actually have multiple, what we call company administrators, so you can have multiple people doing that, adding users and managing your users and things like that. And all of that, like the setting up of the account and the different administrative roles, there's actually 3 different types of administrators for AZTurboCourt. All of that is actually covered in detail in our administrator training. So I'm not going to be covering that in this e-filing training today. So if you are, in fact, somebody within your firm, if you're going to be the person setting up your firm's account in AZTurboCourt, or you're just needing to learn about the administrative roles in AZTurboCourt, then you've got a couple of options, just very quickly. One is you can register for one of our upcoming administrator training webinars. They're about an hour and 15 minutes in length. You'll have a chance to ask questions related to the 3 different administrator roles and their functionality. And then, as with this one, a recording of that training will be sent to you the following day. Your second option is that if you cannot wait until the next administrator live training, then what you can do instead is simply email me, and ask for a recording from the previous administrator training. Now, you won't be able to ask questions, of course, but you'll get immediate access to the training video that's going to walk you through setting up your firm's account, adding and managing your users, and so forth. So if you need that, then here's my email address, Stephen K. Move that out of the way, Stephen K. at AZTurboCourt.com. Okay, so Stephen K. at AZTurboCourt.com, as you see it there on the screen. And so again, just send me an email and let me know that you'd like the link to the administrator training recording, and I'd be happy to send that to you. All right, so again, assuming that that's not your situation, then once a user account has been set up for you by your administrator, then you will receive an email from the system. It's going to include a link that will bring you here. It will also include your username, which is going to be your email address, typically. And then for security purposes, the password that is initially set up for you by the administrator will not be included in that same email. All right, so your administrator will provide you with your AZTurboCourt password separately. And then once you log in, you can change that. All right, so let's go ahead and pretend that that just happened to me, that I work at a law firm and somebody within our firm set up our AZTurboCourt account, added me as one of the users. I received that email, and so here I am logging in for the first time. I put in my email address, which is my username, and now I'm going to go ahead and put in the password that they gave me, and I'm going to click Login, and there we go. So here I am on my home page, and I'm ready to proceed to start creating filings. Now, the very first thing you're going to want to do when you first log in is go to your profile and do a few things in your profile. So let me quickly show you that. There's a couple of different ways you can access your profile. Here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the profile button. You can click on that. That will bring you there. Also, on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice the user menu, and you'll see a link called My Profile there. That'll take you there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that right now. And so now I'm looking at my profile. I can see that we've been registered as an attorney/law firm. There are different types of accounts, and so we've been registered as an attorney/law firm. And I see that my access level is designated as user. Now, everybody that's registered with AZTurboCourt is given this access level of user, which means that I can prepare and submit filings. It also means I can manage my own profile. Now, if I was given any administrator access, again, there are 3 different administrator roles, and I could have one or several of those. If I was given administrative access, then it would also show me that right here next to my access level. It would show me what administrator roles I was given. And so once again, if you're needing to learn about how to function in those administrator roles, you'll want to take a look at the administrator training webinar. Okay, and so this is very straightforward functionality on the screen. Fields with an asterisk mean they're required. If you are an attorney, here's where you can provide your state bar number and the corresponding issuing state. And I would recommend that you do that because AZTurboCourt will very often generate documents for you that will then be filed with the court. And the header of those documents includes your contact information, which needs to include your state bar number. And so rather than having to type that in each time you're creating a filing, by having it here in your profile, we'll just automatically grab it from your profile and include it. And so you only need to enter this one time. Okay, moving down the screen, we've got an area for your security question and answer. No asterisks, so those are optional. But I recommend doing this because this is going to allow you to automatically recover your password if you ever happen to forget it. And so just go ahead and select from one of the available security questions and then provide a corresponding answer. Okay. Any changes you make to the screen at the very bottom, you'll want to click Update. I'll do that now. And that's it. And I can click Return to Home, or I can just click the Home button here. And here I am back at my home screen. Okay. A couple of other quick things I want to show you on your profile. So I'm going to go back there. This time I'll click on the profile button in the upper right-hand corner. All right, so here we are again. Just wanted to show you below this username and security question area, this is where you would change your password. So anytime you want to change your password, you can do that. And you just simply click on the right arrow where it says Request New Password. And you'll be informed, as you see here, that the link for changing your password has been emailed to you. So again, for security purposes. And so just go ahead and open up that email, click on the link, and you can very quickly change your password. Okay, one last time on the profile. Click on the profile button again. So thus far, we've been focusing on this general information tab in my profile, but you'll see that there's also an email preferences tab. So let me briefly talk about the status updates that are automatically sent to you after you've submitted your filings to the court. So as soon as you successfully submit your filing to the court, AZTurboCourt will begin sending you status updates, courtesy messages as to what's going on with the status of your filing. So for example, the very first message you'll receive will say something like, thank you for submitting your forms to Pima Superior Court. We'll notify you once your forms have been processed, and there might be some additional information in that message. Okay, so something like that. And then later on in the process, you might receive a message, another status update that says, we've accepted your filing, here's your new case number, right? If you were doing case initiation, for example. Okay, so these status updates, these courtesy messages, and I use those terms synonymously. They're one and the same thing. So a courtesy message, a status update, a courtesy notification, those are all one and the same thing. And so those are always available to you anytime you're logged into AZTurboCourt. You can see those status updates, those messages. There's several places you can see them. I'll be pointing those out to you as we go. But for example, here in the user menu, you'll see a messages link, right? So that would be one of the ways you could access those. All right. So back to this email preferences tab. You also have the option of requesting that those status updates, those courtesy messages, be emailed to you. And that's what the email preferences tab in your profile is for. So let me go ahead and click on that. And you'll see that you have three choices. One is no emails at all. I'll just log in regularly and check the status of my filings. And that's perfectly fine. That's a perfectly acceptable and workable approach. If you do want to receive email notifications, you have two choices. The distinction here is simply how much information is included in the body of the email. Okay? But both will include links that will then take you to your filing so you can see what's going on. Okay? Now, if you're like me, you're probably not overly excited about requesting even more email in your inbox, right? So you may be inclined to say, yeah, please don't send me any extra emails. I'll just log in regularly and check the status of my filings. And as I said, that's actually perfectly fine. But I also want to bring your attention to these checkboxes below, because these are all of the possible situations when an email might be sent to you. Now, I say might be because it really depends on the case type you're filing. It depends on the jurisdiction you're filing into, because not all jurisdictions will trigger an email at each of these scenarios. But as I look at these, if I'm a filer, there are a couple that really jump out at me. So let me just bring your attention to them. If for some reason an error occurred during the filing of my documents, that is to say, for some reason it technically didn't make it into the court system, or if for some reason the court winds up rejecting my filing, which frankly doesn't happen very often anymore when people are going through AZTurboCourt because of all the things we do up front to help alleviate that. But of course, we can't guarantee that the court won't find some reason to reject your filing, right? So there's always that possibility. But if either of these two scenarios were to happen, yeah, I actually do want to be proactively notified that happened. I don't want to have to wait and find out on my own. You know, if I submitted a filing at the end of the day on Friday and then I shut my computer down, I'm going home and you know, maybe I'm not logging in again until Monday afternoon, I don't want to find out on Monday afternoon that my filing never even went through on Friday, right? So you might want to consider that, just something to think about, and say, okay, yeah, in those situations, do go ahead and send me an email. Whatever you decide, obviously click update to save your changes. You can always come back to your profile and change your email preferences at any time, but just something to think about. Okay, and then the very last thing I want to bring to your attention, let me click return to home here, is the fastest and most direct way to get technical support if you're ever needing technical support for your AZTurboCourt filings. And so, again, in the upper right-hand portion of the screen, you'll see a help button. Occasionally on certain screens, it might say support. Again, they're one and the same thing, help and support. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that help button, and this brings us into our support area, and you'll see a contact us link. Click on the contact us link, and what you're going to notice is that there's an area dedicated just to Arizona court filings. And here you've got a direct phone number and a direct email address for any technical support issues you have with your AZTurboCourt filings. And this really is the fastest, most direct way of getting technical support. So, for example, if you were to reach out to us, to AZTurboCourt, for a technical support issue, in all likelihood, we would simply redirect you to these folks, to this phone number, to this email address, because they really are the ones who are doing the technical support for AZTurboCourt filings. Okay, let's go back to the home screen, and let's go ahead and get started creating some filings. And I'm going to switch back now to my other server here. Great. Okay. So, first of all, if Arizona is not currently showing as your jurisdiction, you'll see there's a couple different places where you can click this Change Jurisdiction link and then just navigate to Arizona. And it will then show you whatever case types are currently available in production for Arizona through AZTurboCourt at that time. And for purposes of today's training webinar, we're going to be focusing on general civil filings. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and log in as a couple of other users who have been already working with AZTurboCourt and creating filings, so I can show you some more functionality. A quick thing about logging in: if you want to save yourself some time with your login, you can connect your AZTurboCourt login to any of your social media account logins. Now, we're not actually exchanging information back and forth between AZTurboCourt and your social media account. You can actually click this Read More link to learn more about that. All we're doing is connecting the logins so that you can do it log into AZTurboCourt with a single click, right? Because up until now, I'm going to have to type in my email address, my password, and then click Login. But if I wanted to, I could, for example, say Continue with LinkedIn. I'll click that now, and then I'll provide my LinkedIn email address and password and click Sign In. I only do that one time, and it will automatically connect my LinkedIn login with my AZTurboCourt login. So I'm not actually going to do that right now, but that's all you need to do. And then from that point forward, when you go to log in, instead of, like I said, putting in your email address, password, and clicking Login, you'd single click this button, click Continue with LinkedIn, or whichever one you chose, and that would log you in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, though, and log in the traditional means right now. Okay, so I've just logged in as a filer who has been creating all sorts of filings and been working with AZTurboCourt for a while now. And so what you're noticing when she logs in is that her home screen has some additional things at the top here that when I logged in as a brand new user weren't there. So what we're showing you here in this table is your 5 most recent filings that you've been working on. Now, they may be on the same case, they might be on different cases, there could be different case types, different statuses, and I'll talk about statuses in detail as we go. But we're going to show you the 5 most recent filings you've been working on. And each filing that you create, by the way, we give a unique number to it. Now, we refer to these as form sets, and this is the form set number. But again, those terms, filing and form set, they're one and the same thing. So a form set and a filing, those are the same thing. And so each of your filings, each of your form sets, has a unique form set number that doesn't exist anywhere in the TurboCourt system. And if I wanted to look at or work on any of these particular recent filings, I could simply click on that form set number, and it would take me into that filing, into that form set, and I could do whatever it is that I needed to do with it. Okay. The other thing that we will show you is this indicator that you have new courtesy messages, status updates for any of the filings that you have already delivered to the courts. So I see here I've got a few filings that I've recently delivered. to the courts, and so I'm already getting these status updates, these courtesy messages as to what's happening with them. And so this is telling me how many of those incoming courtesy messages I've received that I haven't yet read. So I've been doing a lot of filing. There's 74 messages there. Notice also in the user menu that messages link shows that same number, 74. If I start reading those messages, that number, of course, will decrease. And so I could click on that number 74. It'll bring me to a screen that's showing me all the status updates for all of my delivered filings. Okay, so that's another way of accessing them. Now, the key here is that you don't actually have to read these messages from this mechanism. Okay, these are courtesy messages. They're status updates, but they're a courtesy to you. If you want to read them that way, access the updates that way, you can. But if, for example, I wanted to see what's going on with this filing that was recently delivered, I could just click on the form set number and go up to it and see what's going on, see the status of it, right? Get all the details, right? So I could just jump into that filing by clicking on the form set number and see the status of it. Okay, so again, these messages are simply courtesy notifications. Okay, let's go ahead and begin by creating some initiating filings. All right. I'm actually going to bring you, I'm going to show you a couple of different scenarios here. I'm going to show you simpler case initiation filing, and then one that's a little bit more involved, a little bit more complex, so I can show you different pieces of functionality. The other thing that I'm going to be doing is comparing the differences, again, in terms of the jurisdictional requirements, depending on which county, which superior court you're filing into. Hence the need to switch back and forth between screens, okay? So in order to begin, so here I am, I'm on my home page. Of course, I'm in Arizona. And so I want to start a filing in a general civil case. And so I find that case type, and I simply click Start Now, okay? And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to indicate where I want to file, okay? And so every county, every superior court in Arizona is active and live now with AZTurboCourt. The important thing to note is that in Maricopa County, they do not currently allow for receiving electronic filings for case initiation. So you can use AZTurboCourt for your Maricopa filings, but only once the case already exists in the Maricopa system. So if you need to initiate a case in Maricopa at this time, you'll still need to do that through traditional paper means. But once it's in their system, then you can use AZTurboCourt from that point forward to prepare and file any of your additional documents on that case. Okay. All of the other counties, you can use AZTurboCourt for both case initiation and for filing into existing cases. Okay. Now, Maricopa is planning to expand and allow for case initiation electronically as well. We just don't know what their time frame is yet. AZTurboCourt will certainly be first in line to make that available to you, but as I said, we just don't know what their timing is yet. All right, so you're going to select where you want to file. And so, for example, I could say, hey, I need to initiate this case in Pima. And by default, Pima only has one quote-unquote location for filing into their superior court. So this second box just automatically defaults to the superior court. There's no other choice there. So I just selected Pima, and it's automatically going into the superior court. If, however, I were to select, let's just say, Yavapai, well, they've got multiple locations for initiating a case, a general civil case in their superior court. And so you need to select then the appropriate one. Okay? Click Next. And for purposes of this first scenario, I'm going to indicate that I'm starting a new case in the court. Okay? And I click Next. And this is now going to bring me into the short guided AZTurboCourt interview. So let me briefly explain how this works, what you'll be doing. This process, it's a simple three-step process for preparing and submitting your filings. And this is true whether you are initiating a new case in the court or whether you're doing what we call a subsequent filing, basically filing additional documents into an existing case. So whether you're initiating or simply filing documents into an existing case, the three-step process is the same. And that process is step 1, you answer a few questions. Step 2, you attach your documents. And step 3, you electronically submit everything. And then if there's a payment required during that submission, you'll provide your payment information. Okay? So again, step 1, answer some questions. Step 2, attach your documents. Step 3, electronically submit everything. Okay? Now, there are really 3 different jurisdictional requirement differences across the state. So, Maricopa has their way of doing business. So that's one approach to doing business. One set of requirements, if you will, for filing. So the Maricopa approach. Pima has their own way of doing business. They've got their jurisdictional requirements and their approach to doing things. So that's the Pima approach. And then you've got what I like to call the all other counties approach. Basically, any county that is not Pima or Maricopa, they all share a common set of jurisdictional requirements and options. Okay? So you've got the Maricopa approach, the Pima approach, and the all other counties approach. And AZTurboCourt precisely models each of those distinctions, those jurisdictional requirement differences and options very precisely. And so you're going to hear me say this many times, but the rule of thumb is simply follow along with what's presented to you on screen for the jurisdiction you're filing into, and you shouldn't go wrong. Okay? Because we know exactly what documents they need. We know what data they need. We know the way they need it. They know what they won't accept, things like that. And so we very precisely model that for you. So the whole idea is that when you're done, you're giving them what I like to call a clean filing, so that there's the likelihood of them having a reason to reject it is almost none. Certainly not from a technical standpoint, anyway. Like we don't really have any control over what actual documents you file, right? But what's contained in those documents. But in terms of meeting their requirements and their options, yes, it will match 100%. It also allows for the courts to process your filings much, much faster. So you greatly reduce the likelihood of rejection, and they're going to be able to process your filings faster because we're giving it to them exactly the way they need it, right? So they're not spending a lot of time trying to re-identify, okay, you called the document this, they don't have that in their system, so now they have to spend time figuring out how to categorize that document, for example, or other data points, and where to put them in their system, things like that. So all of that is alleviated. All right, the other thing that's going to happen, particularly when it comes to case initiation, is when you finish answering the questions, AZTurboCourt is going to do several things for you. We're going to generate a number of documents for you that you don't have to create yourselves. So for example, the civil cover sheet, that's going to be automatically generated for you. It'll be fully filled out based on the nature of what it is you're filing. Summonses will automatically be generated for you for each of the opposing parties, no matter how many you've got. A certificate will be automatically generated and digitally signed. This is a required document when you're doing case initiation, and there are different certificates required based on where you're filing. In most of the counties, it's the Certificate of Compulsory Arbitration. That's the required document for case initiation. Pima used to use that, but they're not using that anymore. They're now using something called a FASTAR certificate. AZTurboCourt knows that, and we'll make sure we generate it for you. Okay? And there may be other documents automatically generated for you, again, depending on the nature of your filing. And then we also will calculate the filing fees to the penny based on that jurisdiction's fee schedule. So there's not going to be any guesswork as to how much you need to pay. You'll pay the exact amount right from the get-go. And again, there's no delay in processing. Okay? All right, so with that all said, so here I am saying I want to initiate a new case in Yavapai County. That's part of the all other counties approach, right? And so rather than watching me type, by the way, what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to load a couple of filings that I've already created, one here in Yavapai and one in Pima, so that I can quickly go back and forth and show you those differences. So let me go back to my home screen. And let's see, yeah, that's the one I want for Yavapai. And then I'm going to switch here to Pima. And I'm going to log in in as another user who's been creating filings. Okay. All right, so the other thing I want to bring to your attention is because I'm going to be switching back and forth between screens, and because they look quite similar, I want to give you a visual cue so you can more easily follow where we are, like which county we're filing into. All right. So right now on this screen, I'm filing into Pima County. So that's the Pima approach. And when I'm filing into Pima, you'll notice at the top of the screen, I've left the URL address bar here at the top. Okay, so when you see that URL bar there at the top, that's going to tell you that we're filing into Pima. Now, let me switch over to the other one. When you see the top of the screen is clean, there's no URL bar there at the top, that's going to tell you that we're filing into the all other counties group of counties. In this scenario, Yavapai, but again, they all share a common set of requirements. So a clean top, that's the all other counties group, and the URL bar, that's Pima. Okay? So that's going to help you as we go back and forth, switch back and forth. All right, so just to recap where we are, I've logged in, I'm in Arizona, I said I need to do a general civil filing, I said I want to initiate a case, and in this scenario, I'm initiating in Pima. Okay? So I click next, and I indicate how many attorneys are going to be representing the plaintiffs. I can list up to 10. Okay, for simplicity's sake, I've listed just one. That's actually very common. I click next, and then here's the attorney's information screen. Now, all of this information is actually pre-populated for you. I actually didn't type any of that. It gets pulled from your profile, which is why, again, you're going to want to have your bar number in your profile, so we just automatically pull it for all of your filings. Notice also the name of my law firm and our mailing address is pre-populated for me. Now, where did that come from? Because that wasn't in my profile. Well, the person who is in the company administrator role for your firm, they're the ones who maintain this information, and we automatically pull that as well. Okay? So all I need to do on this particular screen is to simply answer a yes/no question. Is this my current mailing address? Because if I work out of a completely separate office, even though it's for the same firm, that's perfectly fine. That's not a problem. I can say, no, that's actually not my mailing address. And then I'd go ahead and provide my separate mailing address. But if that is my mailing address, then all I'm doing is simply saying yes, and then I'm done on this screen. Nothing more to do. Okay? And when I click next, it automatically brings me into the next section, asking about who the plaintiffs are. So the key, one of the keys to understand this part of the process is that when you're doing case initiation, there are more questions because the court needs this information in order to quickly initiate the case for you. You'll see a little bit later on when we are doing subsequent filings, filing additional documents into your existing cases, you'll see that you still have that step one of answering a few questions, but there's literally just a few questions and you'll be done in 60 seconds. Like literally you'll see it's 60 seconds to do that, and then you're attaching your documents. But to initiate the case, the court needs more information up front, so there are more questions. But you only do this one time for this case, okay? So again, just some context. All right, so now we're providing information about the plaintiffs, how many plaintiffs, and you can list up to 50. I'm going to keep it a little more interesting and say 2. I click next, and for each plaintiff, I'm simply providing what type of plaintiff they are and their name. So for their type, it's either business organization, agency, or individual. Note that if they are a DBA, an individual doing business as, you should list them as an individual, and then you'll be able to provide their DBA name on the next screen. Also, if you indicate they're an individual, you will want to indicate whether or not they're a minor or if they've been designated as an incompetent adult, because then the court needs to know who the name of the guardian or the parent is. But in this situation, I've just said, no, just a regular adult individual. Okay. On this screen, the first and last name fields are the only required fields. So there's an email address, telephone number field, address fields, but none of them have asterisks. They're all optional. I'm going to save myself some time and leave them out. Court says they don't absolutely need this right now. Great, I'm not going to provide it. I'll save myself some time. If this person is a DBA, this is where I could indicate that. And if I do, then this field conditionally becomes required. Now that I'm telling the court this person's a DBA, the court wants to know, okay, well, what's their DBA name, right? Or maybe they're also known as an AKA. Again, go ahead and tell us what that name is. Otherwise, if I don't do anything with that field, then there's nothing else I need to provide. And again, I'm only going to provide the first and last name. Save myself some time. Okay, I'm going to click Next again. And by the way, every single time I click the Next button, AZTurboCourt will automatically save all of my information. So you don't have to remember to save any of this. Okay, so if you're in the middle of doing this and you get pulled away from your desk for something in the middle of it, not a problem. AZTurboCourt's already automatically saved everything you've done up until that point. You can come back and finish it later that day, the next day. You can finish it from home. Doesn't really matter. AZTurboCourt knows everything you've done up until that point, and then you can just finish up whenever you return to it. Okay, so for my second plaintiff, I've said it's some sort of a business or organization. And so I've got a field for the business name, and again, they also might be a DBA, right? The rest of these fields are optional, and so again, I'm going to leave them blank. I'm just providing the name. Clicking Next, everything's saved for me, and it just automatically brings me into the next section, asking me about who the defendants are. So once again, I can list up to 50, and I've said 2. And it's the same process. So this is a business of some sort. It's the Anderson Corporation doing business as Anderson Electrical. Okay. Clicking Next. My second defendant is an individual, regular adult. It's Mark Wilson. And there you go. That's it. I'm going to pause right here. And now I'm going to switch over to the All Other Counties group of counties to show you one of the differences that happens when you're initiating a case there. Okay, so let me switch over there. So this is all going to be the same as what you just saw. How many attorneys? My information is automatically pulled for me, and I just simply say yes or no to my address. Number of plaintiffs, all that's the same. Let me just go to the end there. All these are optional, so I'm skipping them. Here are the defendants again. I've said 2. All this is the same. But when I come to actually provide the information for the defendants, you'll notice that there are more fields than just the name field. So let me just very quickly switch back to PIMA for just a moment. So here's the defendant screen for PIMA. It's just the name fields. In the All Other Counties group, you have the email address and telephone number fields, which again are optional, so you can skip them. But they also have a mailing address question, which is required. Now I can say unknown, like I don't know the defendant's mailing address, and then I'm done. That's fine. But if I do know the defendant's mailing address, then I'll get one additional screen where I provide that address. Okay, so that's different when you're initiating into the All Other Counties group. And then for my second defendant, there's my individual, and I know his address. And if you've got multiple defendants and you know their address, if they share an address, you can simply select any of the previously inputted addresses, right? So you don't have to keep typing them. That's going to obviously save you time. It's also going to alleviate the possibility of you mistyping the address the next time you type it in, right? And you might transpose the numbers the next time and type it in as 54 Main Street. And now the court's wondering, okay, are they really just down the street from one another, or is that a typo, right? And then you've got to deal with that downstream. So this alleviates that problem. If they have separate addresses, just say specified below and enter in the unique address. Otherwise, you can just reuse a shared address. Okay, so that's different when you're initiating in the all other counties group. They want to know the defendant's addresses. But again, you can say, I don't know, and then you're done. Okay, back to PIMA. So I'm at the end of the defendant section, and when I click next, it automatically brings me into the very last section. And this has to do with the civil cover sheet and some other things. So I'm not seeking any emergency orders, so there's nothing for me to check here. You could, if you needed to, check one or several, whatever would be appropriate. But in this PIMA filing scenario, which is simpler, I'm saying, no, I don't need any emergency orders, so there's nothing for me to do here. I skip it. I just click next. And now, if you haven't initiated a case in Arizona recently, they have had a rule change, and they've got a new rule, 26.2, which replaces what used to be the complex case designation on the civil cover sheet. So it used to be that you would indicate whether a case should be designated as complex or not. And if you said, yes, it should, then there were a series of checkboxes indicating why it should be designated as complex. All of that is gone now, and instead they've got what's called this discovery tier level. And you see there are 3 tiers. So tier 1 is simple cases that can be tried in 1 or 2 days, actions claiming $50,000 or less in damages. Then tier 2, cases of intermediate complexity with claims of more than $50,000, less than $300,000. And then tier 3, cases that are logistically or legally complex, actions claiming $300,000 or more in damages. So you simply choose one of those 3 tiers as appropriate. And then you can optionally put in a dollar amount there for monetary relief requested. And if you happen to put in a dollar amount that doesn't match the tier level that you've indicated, so here I've said tier 2, which is up to $300K, but I'm saying, hey, we want $350K, AZTurboCourt will catch that and say, wait a minute, something's not right there, and make sure that you match those, okay? So we're always looking for ways to, as I say, give you a clean filing so that there's no or very little likelihood of the court rejecting it or delaying the processing of it. All right, so I'm going to say it's a tier 2, and we're requesting $150,000. I click next, and now I'm going to indicate the case category and subcategory. This is another area where the counties vary because their categories and their subcategory lists are a little bit different from one another. So again, rule of thumb, just follow along with what's presented to you on screen for this particular jurisdiction. Okay, so here in PIMA, there are 5 different top-level categories. So for example, if I select contracts and then click next, then I'm getting a list of subcategories for PIMA's contract cases. Now this is, again, very specific to PIMA, okay? So those 5. Switching over to Yavapai and the All Other Counties group, you'll see that they actually have 6 different top-level categories. One of the extra one is a real property case. Okay, that's extra. When you go back to PIMA, real property does not appear as a top-level category. So if you need to initiate a real property case in PIMA, you would simply indicate other. And then the subcategory list will include real property. Okay? So again, these lists are very specific to each jurisdiction you're filing into. All right? So just select for that jurisdiction. So I'm indicating it's a contracts case, and it's 20 or more structures. I click next, and because I'm filing in PIMA, AZTurboCourt knows that PIMA requires a fast start certificate to initiate this case. And I'm simply answering a yes/no question. Is this case subject to fast start, yes or no? Now, you may have noticed on some of the screens there is a question box on the right-hand side. These are frequently asked questions, or FAQs. And I could click on any one of these. I'll click on the second one. We'll repeat the question and then show you the corresponding answer. So I could read that if I'm needing some information to help me choose. Okay? And then I'll just close that FAQ. You'll also see words or phrases that are links. Those will also take you to those same FAQs. It's just another way of getting to them. All right, so I'm just going to answer yes or no, whether or not I think the case is subject to fast start. I'm going to say yes. regardless of whether I answer yes or no, a certificate's going to be generated. And so here, I'm simply checking the box for my statement. You'll notice my name is embedded in the statement, and this is for my digital signature for that Fast Start certificate. So I'm just checking the box. Okay. I click Next, and I have one last thing to do, and that's to indicate what is the main document I'm going to be filing to initiate this case. And again, this list of choices is specific to this jurisdiction. These are PIMA's options. You'll see in a moment when we go to Yavapai, which is part of the All Other Counties group, they have a slightly different list of documents. Okay. Now, what do we mean by main document? You can think of it as a main document or as a lead document. You're going to actually be able to file many documents as part of this initiating filing. And you're going to be able to file in PIMA and in the All Other Counties group up to 6 main documents or top-level documents. And each of those main documents, you're going to be able to attach supporting documents for each one of them if you need to. Okay? But the court wants to know what the #1 main or primary document is that you're using to initiate the case. That's why this is here in the interview. Okay? And so you're going to select for one of these choices. And that's it. You're done. At this point, if I were to click Next, AZTurboCourt would analyze all of my responses, and it will generate all of those forms that I mentioned to you. It'll calculate the fees. It'll set up placeholders for you to attach your documents, including any other required documents that that particular court needs based on the nature of what it is you're filing. That's all done for you automatically. Okay? But before I do that, I want to do 2 things. One is I want to just give a little bit of a sort of a reality check as to what it will be like for you to actually go through and do this yourself, because I've been spending, a fair bit of time talking about different filing scenarios and what-if situations and comparing between the counties and things like that, none of which you're going to be doing when you're actually just creating your own filing, right? So I just want to walk you through a very common initiating filing so you get a sense of what that process will be like and also how quickly you'll be able to do it. Okay, so let's just go back to the very beginning here. So I've logged in, I'm in Arizona, I say I need to do a general civil filing. Great, and now I'm indicating where I'm filing, and I've selected my county. And then I single click what I'm filing, and in this case, starting a new case in the court. Okay, single click there. Okay, let's get started. I click Next. I indicate the number of attorneys. My information is all pre-populated for me, great. And I'm simply answering a yes/no question as to whether or not this is my mailing address. Okay, I click Next. I indicate how many plaintiffs, and then for each plaintiff, I'm simply indicating their type and their first and last name. Again, the court doesn't require this information. I'm going to save myself some time and not provide it. I've got my second plaintiff, their type, and their name, whatever it happens to be. Great. Moving on. Same thing for the defendants, how many there are, their type, their name. Right? Now, if I'm filing in the All Other Counties group, I also have the address question. And again, I can say unknown, right, and then I'm done. Or I could say, yeah, I do know the defendant's mailing address, and here it is. Right? So you might have that extra question there for that. Second defendant, their type, their name, and again, maybe the address question. And if it's a shared address, you can reuse it to save yourself time. Okay, final section. Nope, don't need any emergency orders. I select my discovery tier level and optionally provide a dollar amount. I indicate the category, the corresponding subcategory, yes or no as to whether or not this case is subject to Fast Start. Now, this is for PIMA. You'll see in just a moment when we go back to the All Other Counties group, it'll be the Certificate of Compulsory Arbitration. But the process is exactly the same. A simple yes/no question. Is it subject to this or not? Yes or no. Checkbox for my digital signature for that certificate. And then what my main document is. That's it. So even though it's case initiation and the court needs all of this additional information, you're still going to actually be able to provide this quite quickly. Okay? So now, before I proceed with actually going to that next step of having AZTurboCourt generate all those documents and me attaching my own documents, right, that second step, I want to bring you over to the All Other Counties group again, show you some of those other variations, as well as a slightly more complex initiating filing. So I'm going to switch screens now. So here I am back in Yavapai, which is part of the All Other Counties group. And let's go to the very end of the defendant section. By the way, you may have noticed me sort of clicking around and clicking into the sections and on pages. When you're first going through the interview for the very first time, all you do is answer the question and click next, right? And every time you click next, it's saving what you just did, and it just walks you through it until you get to the very end. But once you've done that, you don't have to hit the previous button or the next button, several times to find what you're looking for. We give you very fast, easy navigation. And so if I need to jump into any section, I can just click on that section title and just go right to that page, right? So very quickly find what it is you're looking for if you ever need to review or change anything, okay? So I'm going to jump back into the dependent section, jump onto that very last page. All right, so up until now, this has all been what we've been seeing thus far for case initiation. And again, this is in Yavapai, the All Other Counties group. I'm clicking next. And so now I want to show you a more complex initiating filing. And it's more complicated because I'm requesting a couple of different emergency orders, a provisional remedy and an order to show cause. And I want to show you what AZTurboCourt will do with that to support you. Okay. So in the case of the provisional remedy, AZTurboCourt is actually going to generate this document for you. Okay. So because I checked that box, when I click next, instead of going right to the discovery tier level, which is what we saw when we were filing in PIMA, I have a couple of additional questions that automatically show up because I said I want a provisional remedy. So now when I click next, I see a new question. And so this is also showing you the dynamic nature of the AZTurboCourt interview. The questions may change based on the way you're responding to the previous questions. So for example, I might be initiating a case in PIMA today, and I go through the interview, and then next week I'm initiating a different case in PIMA, and I get slightly different questions, even though I'm still initiating in PIMA. Because the nature of my filing is unique, we know that PIMA has different requirements, and so we make sure that you provide the information that they need based on what it is you're initiating, okay? So just a heads up about that. All right, so when you're indicating you need a provisional remedy, we're going to ask you, okay, which type? Provisional remedy with notice or without notice? And again, the FAQs on this page speak to those differences, so you could read those if you want to help you to decide. And when you're filing in the All Other Counties group, which is where I am right now, you will also see two additional checkboxes, okay? So let me just quickly switch to PIMA for just a moment and show you that if I go to the emergency orders page and I say, yeah, I need a provisional remedy, you'll get that same question. Which type? Remedy with notice or without notice, okay? But you'll see there's no additional checkboxes here. It's just that simple question, okay? So back to the All Other Counties group, I'm indicating what type of provisional remedy, and I see two additional checkboxes. These are optional. You can indicate that with this notice of provisional remedy, I'm also going to be filing an application for that provisional remedy and or an affidavit in support of that provisional remedy. I can select one or both or neither, whatever. If you do check any of these boxes, then you'll see in just a moment we will create a placeholder on the screen where you're going to be attaching your own documents, because this then will become a required attachment, okay, to initiate your case. If you're telling the court for this provisional remedy, I'm going to be filing an affidavit in support of it, they're saying we want it right away. We want it as part of your initiating filing, okay? So we'll have a placeholder for you to attach it, and it's required. Now, in PIMA, they don't have these checkboxes. You can still attach these documents as part of your initiating filing in PIMA. They're simply not asking you to proactively indicate that up front here. Okay, so again, a slightly different approach to the way they do business in PIMA. Okay, so there you go. That's for your provisional remedy. And so I've said provisional remedy with notice. I click next, and I get one additional screen here where I can indicate a few different things, because we're going to use this information to actually generate the document for you. So we're going to show you the names of all of the plaintiffs and all of the defendants, and then you just check the boxes for whoever should be listed on this particular document. For the dollar amount field, some are required and some are optional, so you just provide whatever is appropriate. For the property description, that's required, and you have up to 3 lines of details that you can provide. Okay, and that's that. I click next, and now I'm back to the discovery tier, the case categories, subcategories, and so forth. Okay. So again, these lists are specific to the All Other Counties group. Now, when it comes time to the required certificate, it's not FASTAR because we're no longer in PIMA. It's the Certificate of Compulsory Arbitration. But it's the exact same process. So again, a simple yes/no question: is the case subject to compulsory arbitration? And however I answer that question, a checkbox for my digital signature for the statement for that particular certificate. Then my main document selection, again, a slightly different list than what we saw in PIMA. And one extra thing you can do when you're initiating a case in the All Other Counties group of counties, let me just show you that, and that is you can ask the court to arrange for an interpreter. And if you're needing that, just go ahead and check that box, and you'll get a drop-down list of all of the possible languages that you might want to ask the court to arrange for an interpreter for. And do note that sign language is one of the choices. So, for example, you might want to ask the court to arrange for somebody to sign at court if your client is hearing impaired, for example. So that's an option, not currently available through this means in PIMA. Okay. Okay. So when you're done, you click next. AZTurboCourt analyzes all of your answers, and it does several things for you. So as I mentioned, it will calculate the fees based on the jurisdiction you're filing into. So these are Yavapai fees versus PIMA's fees. We also have just generated all of these documents for you. They're all created as PDFs. So let me very quickly walk you through what we've generated here. So you can click the view link next to each one to see them. So first, let's take a look at that civil cover sheet. Okay, so there's the new civil cover sheet. There's your bar number, other details, defendants' names. 20 or more structures is checked. Tier 2, 150,000. I needed some emergency orders, so that's all checked. Space for additional plaintiffs and defendants. And we also create an additional attachment page, or several pages if needed. This is all part of one document. It's all just one PDF. The court receives this as well. It's going to be all of the attorney filing information, whatever you provided, as well as a list of all of the key documents. Okay. So that is your civil cover sheet generated for you. Here I am in Yavapai, part of the All Other Counties group, so that Certificate of Compulsory Arbitration is a required document. So we've generated that for you. So there it is. And here is your name with your digital signature. Arizona uses the /S/ to indicate a digital signature for electronic filing. And by the way, if you're ever needing to attach your own document that requires a signature, you're going to absolutely need to make sure that it has the /S/ next to the name to indicate that this is a digital signature. Otherwise, they may reject it. I have 2 defendants, so I've got 2 summonses that were generated for me. The first one, this was against the Wilson Corporation. The second one should be for that individual. Yeah, there it is, Mark Wilson. And I said I wanted a notice of provisional remedy with notice. We've generated that for you as well as one of the emergency orders. And this is looks like it's a 3-page document that was created. And so whoever you indicated, check the boxes for the defendants, they're all going to be there. Same thing with the plaintiffs, description of the property, and then whatever the dollar amounts were that you indicated. Okay. Now, as you read through this and you realize you want to make some changes, maybe change the description of the property or change some of those dollar amounts, not a problem. You can do that. So let me go ahead and just close this document. And prior to sending it to the court, at any time, you can click review and edit your answers. That'll just take you right back into the interview. And I'm going to change some of those dollar amounts on that provisional remedy. So again, I don't have to hit the previous button to go or the next button to find it. I just jump right into that section, right? And I go right to the information page for that provisional remedy, and there I am. And let's just change that to $9,400. And I'm going to give myself a little extra money as an attorney. Thank you very much. And I click next to save it, right? Always click next to save. That's it. It saved it. Let me just jump ahead now to that final preview, and AZTurboCourt will automatically regenerate everything for me. Now, when I look at that notice of provisional remedy, any changes I made are automatically reflected in the new document. Okay? Go ahead and close that. All right. So we're done with step 1. We answered the questions. AZTurboCourt did all of these things for us. Thank you very much. And now we're ready to attach, our documents, whatever they may be. Before I do that, I want to just talk about the status of this filing, where we are right now in this process. So here in the header of this screen, you'll see a status field. The status of this filing at this point is called completed. Completed tells you that you've answered all the questions. So again, whether you're initiating a new case or simply filing documents into an existing case, however many questions there were, completed tells you you finished answering them, and now you're ready to attach your own documents. Now, if you did get pulled away from your desk in the middle of doing this and you did not finish it, when you return to this filing, to this form set, the status will be called incomplete, right? That makes sense. Basically, it tells you, hey, you haven't finished answering all the questions yet. Okay, so there you go. Now it's completed, and by the way, it already has a unique form set number. Okay, I'm going to now attach my documents and electronically submit them to the court. When I do that, the status of my filing, of my form set, will change from completed to delivered, which is going to tell me that the court received everything that I just sent to them. Then, once the court processes my filing and accepts it, it will change from delivered to e-filed. Okay, so those are really the 3 main statuses: completed to delivered to e-filed. And that's ultimately what you're looking for. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at the area where you are attaching your documents. So we set up placeholders. We know exactly what the court needs in this filing scenario. We're going to make sure you include it, right, so that you don't give them an incomplete filing, which again would either lead to them rejecting it outright or causing a long delay potentially in getting it processed. So you indicated in your interview that you're going to be initiating this case with your main document being a complaint. So there it is, placeholder for a complaint. It's a required attachment. And so to attach my complaint, I simply click the attach link next to it. So we already know it's a complaint, and you're going to want to keep an eye on the allowed file types. In Arizona, for general civil filings, most of the time, these are the 3 file types that you can attach: PDF, DocX, and ODT. That's typically what they allow. But occasionally it will be different, so you'll want to keep a lookout for that. And then for your document, you're going to want to give it a title or a description. Here again, there are differences between the counties in terms of the number of characters. So if you are filing into PEMA or the All Other Counties group of counties, you can type a document title or description of up to 100 characters, a nice long title. Okay. When you're filing into Maricopa, which again would not be case initiation, but could be into one of their existing cases. In Maricopa, their document titles and descriptions are actually up to 255 characters, so a very long title, okay? But everywhere else other than Maricopa, it's up to 100 characters. So you want to put a meaningful title there for your description. For purposes of brevity, I'm just going to call this my complaint. A really bad name, don't use that. And then I'm going to select my file. I'm going to find the document that I prepared for this. So I click that button, and I'm going to look for my complaint. There it is. Okay. And then I simply click Save, and AZTurboCourt will process that, making sure it's one of those valid file types. So for example, if you were to take, let's just say you work in WordPerfect, and you took a WordPerfect document, and you simply renamed it .docx. We're going to reject that. We're not going to allow you to attach that because we know the court cannot consume a WordPerfect document, and they're going to reject your filing. So it's better for us to tell you right up front, hey, this isn't going to fly. You need to fix this, rather than it being actually rejected by the court, right? So again, we do as much as we can up front for you so that you'll submit a clean filing that will sail through. Okay, so there's my complaint. And if I wanted to look at it to make sure I actually attached the right document, I could click the View link now, and that'll actually open up the document, and I can make sure I've got the right one. If for some reason I didn't, or I need to make a change, you'll notice that link went from attached to, and now says Edit. And when I click on Edit, I can change that title or description, right? I haven't submitted it to the court yet, so I can change that title or description, and I can also replace that file. If I attach the wrong one, for example, I can just click Choose File again, grab the correct file. We'll simply discard your previous file and replace it with your most recent one, whatever one you're attaching, okay? So you can do that. Okay, now for this main document, this complaint, notice that you can attach supporting documents. In fact, you can attach up to 25 supporting documents per main document, okay? And you see there's like linkage here, right? So when you go to attach a supporting document, the mechanism is the same regardless of which court you're filing into, but what you can attach as a supporting document does vary. Again, different jurisdictional requirements and options. So let me show you those differences. Okay, so here we are in the All Other Counties group of counties. When you go to attach a supporting document there, in this initiating filing, and I'll go ahead and click Attach. So first of all, we already know you're attaching this as a supporting document to your complaint, right? So they're already linked. You can indicate what type of a document this is. It could be just a generic supporting document of some sort, or it could be very specifically a proposed notice of hearing, a proposed judgment, a proposed order, okay? So if I could, I could say that, and I'll just call it my first supporting document. Again, horrible name, don't use that. You have up to 100 characters in this jurisdiction for your document title here. And then attach your supporting document, whatever it is, and click Save. And so there's my first supporting document, which I categorized as just a generic supporting document. There's the name I gave it. It's linked, it's attached. The courts will see this as well. And now I've got up to 24 more that I can attach to that complaint. Okay? So when you're in the All Other Counties group, again, your supporting documents can be either sort of a generic supporting document or these specific ones. In PIMA, that's not the same. So I'm going to switch now to PIMA. And let's just go to the very end here. Click Next. Okay, so here's my PIMA filing. Different fees, different form set number, of course. Status is completed. I've got my cover sheet, the Fast Star certificate, because we're in PIMA, a couple summonses. My main document was going to be a claim. Let me go ahead and very quickly attach that. My claim. Okay, so there's my main document. Now I'm going to attach a supporting document in this PIMA initiating filing. So again, the mechanism is the same here, but what I can attach is not the same. Notice that in PIMA, when you're attaching a supporting document, it's only supporting document, generic supporting document. Now you can attach lots of different documents here, right? But it's going to be categorized as just a supporting document. So what if you have a proposed order or a proposed notice of hearing or a proposed judgment? You'll notice here at the very top, we very explicitly tell you, do not attach them here, because PIMA cannot consume those types of documents as supporting documents. They'll reject your filing, okay? So what do you do in that case? Well, if you remember a little while back, I said when you go to submit your filings in these jurisdictions, with the exception of Maricopa, you're going to be able to attach up to 6 main documents. But the interview is asking you for what your number 1 main document is. But you still can attach 5 more main documents, and that's what the additional documents area is for. You can attach up to 5 additional documents. And in PIMA, when you're initiating, that is where you can attach your proposed document types. Because for PIMA, these proposed document types have to be main documents. That's how their system consumes them, as main documents. In the All Other Counties group, they consume proposed documents as supporting documents. They can't take them as main documents. It's just the reverse. Okay, we know that. And so again, we're providing to you the way this particular jurisdiction needs the documents so that they don't reject the filing for you, or at the very least cause a long delay in processing it. Okay? So here is where you can indicate in PIMA for your additional documents, your proposed order, judgment, notice of hearing, and they have another type of a FASTAR certificate as well. Okay? Otherwise, it's just a generic supporting document of some sort. Okay, so there you go. All right, so back to Yavapai and the All Other Counties group. Let me switch to that screen again. All right, so I've got my complaint. I've got a supporting document there. I can attach others. I indicated in this filing that I needed an order to show cause. Well, in the All Other Counties group, if you want an order to show cause, they want you to file a petition for that order to show cause. We know that, so we set it up as a required attachment. And they also want your proposed order. Okay? And so we already set those up for you as required placeholders. Now, I've gone ahead and already attached those documents to save us some time. But I do want to show you this proposed order, because there's something very particular about anytime you're attaching a proposed order that's important for you to note. So I'm going to go ahead and click Edit where I've already attached that. So here's my proposed order that I've attached. Notice that for the allowed file types, PDF is not listed. Only DocX and ODT, which are editable file types. Right? PDF is not editable, it's static. And what that means is that if you were to submit your proposed order as a PDF, it's static, it's non-editable. It means the judge is not going to be able to make any changes to your proposed order. Now, I know that's what you want, but that's just not the way the courts work. So they need it in an editable document format in case the judge wants to make changes to your proposed order. Okay? So there you go. And again, we know that. So we set it up so that your proposed orders come in the format that the courts wanted. Otherwise, they're going to reject it. All right. I also said that when I wanted my provisional remedy, if you remember, I checked the box that said, and I'm also going to be filing an affidavit in support of that provisional remedy. Well, there's the required placeholder for it. And I've gone ahead and already attached it again to save us some time. So anytime you have a main document, sort of this, you know, these document types that are on the far left, you can have up to 25 supporting documents for any of them. And you still have the 5 additional documents in Yavapai here in the All Other Counties group. But you have a different list of documents that you can attach here, because in PIMA, you needed this for your proposed order, your proposed judgment, right? That's how PIMA did their proposed documents in this additional documents area. Proposed documents in Yavapai are supporting documents, not main documents. So let's take a look at the list of main document types when you're initiating in the all of the counties group. So I can select any of these categories, let's say a notice. Let's see what happens there. All right, so either a generic notice or a notice of hearing. I could attach that. Let's see, complaint, just a complaint. Application, looks like an application for a TRO or generic applications, okay? So lots of different options there for your 5 additional documents when you're initiating in the all of the counties group. All right, so you're going to prepare and attach whatever documents are applicable and appropriate for you in your filing situation here, right? So I've answered my questions, I've attached my documents, and now I'm ready to do the final step, which is to electronically submit everything, right, and make my payment. And to do so, I simply provide my first and last name for my digital signature, under penalty of perjury, and then I go ahead and make my payment and electronically submit everything. And that's it. But before I do that, I want to show you some additional functionality that may be helpful to you. Okay? You'll notice at the very top of the screen there are several buttons here on this button bar at the very top. I want to bring your attention to the very first 2 right now. So this first one is called notifications, and this is true of anywhere you're filing, any of the jurisdictions, you'll see these buttons. And so if I click on the notifications button, it brings me to a screen that has 2 sections to it. It's got an email preferences section and a courtesy notification section. For the email preferences section, what we're showing you is what your current default setting is in your profile as to whether or not you're going to be receiving email updates, those courtesy messages via email, those status updates, right? And so we're simply showing you what your current choice is so that if you want to, you can override that setting just for this one filing, right? So again, you may have still said, yeah, you know what, I really do log in all the time and I don't really need any extra emails, so please don't send me any extra emails. And again, like I said, that's perfectly fine. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this is a brand new client that you're filing this for, and you're initiating a new case, and it is Friday, and you really are about to go on vacation. And chances are you're not going to be logging in regularly like you normally do, even over the weekends, let's say. And so what we're doing here is we're giving you the opportunity to say, okay, yeah, for this initiating filing, do give me those status updates via email because I really am not going to be at my computer. And you can override your setting just for this one filing. Okay, so if that's helpful for you, this is where you can do that. Okay, and then the other thing that you can do for this particular filing is you can have other people email those status updates as well. And you can provide one or several email addresses in this box. If you want to provide several email addresses, just separate them with a comma. This could be co-counsel, it could be your boss, it could be your paralegal or your legal assistant. In theory, it could be your client even. Whoever's email address you put in here, they will also get those same status updates for this particular filing, what's going on with this particular filing. Now, please note, these status updates, these emails that come, do not include copies of documents. They are just status updates, okay? But again, if this is something that's helpful, to have your assistant have or your boss, this is a great way to do it. Okay, whatever you decide here, just click Save, and AZTurboCourt will take care of it from there. All right, so that was the first button. The second button is the Add Keyword Matter Number button. You'll notice in the header area here, there's a field called Keyword Matter Number. Currently, there's nothing there. Now, this is only for your own internal use. This has nothing to do with the courts, okay? But this is a really helpful field that you can use. You can basically put anything in this field. It's alphanumeric, special characters. It's typically used for tracking either client activity or case activity. So let's say you use a client ID system. Well, you could put your client's ID in this field for this filing and then do that for all of their filings, right? And then over the course of time, you can search for any filing you've done on behalf of that particular client number, right? Or maybe you use different words or phrases or keys for tracking a case, right? So you put that case ID whatever that might be, in the keyword matter number field. And again, you can use it for searching and tracking later on. Okay, so in order to add the keyword matter number, you simply click that button. And you've got a single field here. Again, it's alphanumeric. Special characters are allowed. And let's just pretend, I'm going to pretend that we use a client ID system. And this particular filing is for my client A-23456, for example. But I could use special characters, whatever I needed. Okay? And I'll just go ahead and click Save. And there it is. And I can track on that now. If I mistyped it for any reason, I can just click that button again and change it. I can edit it. And I can do this at any time, right? So let's just say I already electronically delivered it to the court and I forgot to put the keyword matter number field in. That's okay, because it has nothing to do with the courts. So I can add this keyword matter number anytime. Even after the court's already accepted it and it's already gone to e-filed status, I can still add the keyword matter number after the fact. Okay? So that's super helpful. All right, I'm going to switch over to PIMA, and I'm going to go ahead and submit this filing. Everything's good to go there. Good, 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 good. Great. All right, so let's go ahead and submit this filing. Clicking Submit. I'm in my final step here now to electronically submit everything and make my payment. And because payment is required, we will take you to a company called AZTurboCourt. This is the company that Arizona uses to process their payments. Okay? So this is their testing environment as well, but we really are connected with them live right now. And again, this is very similar to what you will encounter in production. And so here we are at AZTurboCourt to provide our payment information. And so we know the jurisdiction that's being filed into. There's your form set number, breakdown of the fees for this particular filing, and your options of paying either with a credit card or a checking or savings account. So let me go ahead and click on that middle tab, checking savings account. So if you need to pay with that, enter the routing number of the account number itself, and then your choices that are provided: checking, savings, corporate, which is essentially corporate checking, or corporate savings. Optionally, you could provide a check number. Okay, so you provide that, and then provide the billing address information for that particular bank account. Now, that bank account, that checking or savings account, is going to be under either an organization's name or a person's first and last name, right? It might be your checking account, right? So in that situation, you just put your first and last name, whatever is appropriate for the billing address for that bank account, along with the rest of this information. Now, if this is your account, save yourself some time and just check this box, same as filer's information, because AZTurboCourt's going to then grab your profile information from AZTurboCourt and pre-populate everything for you. And if you have to make any changes here for this particular bank account, you can, make those changes. Okay, and it'll be remembered from that point forward. So that's if you're paying with a checking or savings account. Or if you want to pay with a credit card, then you just stay on that credit card tab and you go through the same process. Indicate the type of credit card: Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover. Provide the card number. They've actually given me some credit card numbers here. I'm going to go ahead and put one of these in. I don't actually know if these are still valid or not, but let's just give it a try. 70132. Great. Security code, if there is one, and the expiration date. Okay. Again, billing information. And then you'll click Submit. Now, if the payment information, if for any reason the payment does not go through, you'll be left here on the AZTurboCourt screen. You'll get some sort of a red error message indicating that, and then, of course, you'll try again. If AZTurboCourt is able to process your payment, then you're going to be returned to AZTurboCourt. It'll show that your payment was successful, and you'll be given the opportunity to save that payment method for future use if you want to. Okay? So I'm going to cross my fingers. Let's see what happens with this particular credit card. Nope, that one didn't go through. All right. I'm going to try one more. And and we'll give it up after that. Let's see, try this one. Okay, let's go with that one. Oh, great. Okay, so that payment went through. ACP returns you to AZTurboCourt telling you your payment was successful. Notice that the status of your filing already shows delivered. What that means is not only did the payment process, but we literally did just send your filing to PIMA. Again, it's their test environment, but it matches the production environment. And we already got a message back from PIMA that they were able to successfully consume your filing. All of the documents, all of the data, financial information, it's in their system now. There was no technical issues, okay? So it's good to go. The clerks can now work on it. So you've successfully delivered your filing. Congratulations. Okay. So here we're showing you details about that payment transaction. You can click View Payment Receipt to get those details. All right. So you see all of this helpful information along with the breakdown of the fees. If you want, you can print a hard copy, so have a hard copy of that receipt by clicking this link, or you could click this link and then just save it as a PDF, so you now have a digital copy of your receipt, right? And then just save it to your hard drive or your network drive, okay? Disregard this red note for the time being. You generally won't have that situation. So because I entered in a credit card number, or let's say a checking account, we're giving you the opportunity to save that particular payment method for future use with ACP and AZTurboCourt. Now, anybody who's done online shopping is probably very familiar with this functionality, but let me explain the interaction between ACP and AZTurboCourt, because that's important for you to know. ACP is where your financial information is very securely stored. So, for example, AZTurboCourt does not know your routing number. We don't know your bank account number. We don't know your credit card number, things like that, okay? ACP has that. What ACP does is they pass back to us a key code, which is completely meaningless to us. And if you decide that you want to save this particular payment method for future use, you simply give it a nickname. You know, you could call it whatever you want, you know, Stevens Visa, or, you know, it could be your Civil MasterCard or whatever, right? And then click Save and View Form Set. And then the next time you go to pay for an AZTurboCourt filing through ACP, you'll see this, whatever you named it, in your Save Payment Methods, and that, right, allows you to keep paying with that rather than having to retype it in each time. Or you could say, no, I really don't want to save it for future use, in which case that's fine. Just click Don't Save and go to my filing, view my form set, okay? By the way, the reason I'm seeing this red note here is because I actually have already manually entered that particular credit card number, and I've already saved it as a saved payment method. And so we're basically alerting me like, hey, you already did this. Like, don't save it again, right? It's sort of a, you know, sort of a dummy proof kind of a thing. So there you go. So I'm actually not going to save this one because I've already saved it. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go to our filing. Let's view our form set. Okay, so here we are. We're on the Filing Details tab again. It's been delivered. Here are all of the documents that I just submitted to PIMA. And at this point, I'm simply waiting for them to process my filing. And I'm waiting for them to accept it, because then it will go from status delivered to e-filed, right? And once it goes to e-filed, that's when I will be given access to the conform stamped copies, as well as other information about that case, okay? So that's it. You're done. You answered some questions, you attached your documents, you electronically submitted everything, and now it's been delivered. You're simply waiting for the court to accept your filing. And I see that there are a couple of other tabs here, so let's very quickly take a look at those. So right now we're on the main one, the Filing Details tab, but I'll click on the Messages tab, and And I see that I've got a couple of messages here. So yeah, so this was that first one. Thanks for submitting your documents to PIMA. You'll be notified when they've been processed. And then PIMA has provided some additional information here for me. Great. Okay, I'll mark that as being read. So again, that's one of those courtesy messages, one of those status updates, okay? Then there's the Payments tab, and you can always return to the Payments tab to access that payment receipt. So I've got the link here for the payment details, and that brings up that same screen we just saw, where again, I can print a hard copy or save a digital copy. Okay? And back on my Filing Details tab, I'm simply waiting for the court to process and accept my filing. Notice I did not put a keyword matter number on this filing, and yet it's already been delivered. Not a problem. I'll go ahead and add it after the fact, because again, it has nothing to do with the court itself. It's only for our internal purposes, and there it is. Okay? So now let's imagine that the court has in fact accepted your filing, and the status changes from delivered to e-filed, and they are then going to give you access to the conformed stamped copies, right? So let's take a look at that, because again, 3 different approaches, right? The Maricopa approach, the PIMA approach, the all other counties approach. The timing of when they make those documents available to you is different, and how they make them available to you through AZTurboCourt is also different. So that's important for you to know that as well. All right, so let me show you those differences. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to a few different filings that I know have already been e-filed to show you the differences in the way the counties do this. All right, so this first filing that I'm going to show you is a Maricopa filing. Now again, this is not case initiation. This was simply filing some additional documents into an existing case. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that form set number. So this is a Maricopa filing. It's been e-filed. And the document was a notice of appeal that I filed. So the way Maricopa makes their conformed stamped copies available through AZTurboCourt is we add a new section here called Stamped Documents. And so if I were to click on the View link for that document in the Stamped Documents section, when I click on it, we'll actually bring up Maricopa's version of the document with its stamp on it, however they stamped it, okay? And then I can view it on screen, I can print it, I can save it to my hard drive or my network drive, whatever it is that I need to do with it, okay? So this is how Maricopa gives you access to the conformed stamped copies. We'll actually add a stamped document section to this filing details page, and then just click View, and you'll get the stamped document that way, okay? So that's Maricopa's approach. Now let me show you PIMA's approach. Okay, so this is a PIMA filing. Here we are in PIMA. So there's no added section called Stamped Documents. Instead, PIMA simply, what we do is we'll show you additional links for any of the documents that they have stamped. Now remember, the courts don't stamp all the documents. Typically supporting documents, for example, are not stamped. Certain documents are, others are not. And so whatever documents PIMA has stamped, a link will appear, and what that link is will depend on what they actually stamped. But I could click on any of these links and get a conformed stamped copy of a document, again, from PIMA's system, okay? So that's the way PIMA makes their stamped documents available. And then the third approach, the all other counties approach. So I don't actually have an example to show you, but I'll just very simply explain it to you. So when you're looking at, it's very similar to what we're seeing here in PIMA, except that there's no additional links here of court copy or endorse. It's just the original, the names of the documents and the view link, which does not get you to the stamped copies. So when you're looking at a filing that was sent to the all other counties group of counties and the status is e-filed, the way that you'll access the conformed stamped copies is by clicking on the button here in the upper right-hand corner, View Court Case Documents. Because what that's going to do is it's actually going to give you access to the court's electronic docket on this case. And then from there, you can just grab whatever stamped documents you need. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and clicked on it for PIMA, And it's not a real case, so it's not really going to be a full docket, but this will give you an idea of what it's going to be like to access the docket on your cases. So we'll give Pima just a moment. We should be able to get it. Yeah, okay, great. All right, so I just asked Pima for their electronic docket on this particular case number. Now, again, you can imagine that this would have a lot more in it, right? All of your documents, maybe opposing counsel's documents, maybe judges' documents. If there's an arbitrator or a mediator, there might be their documents in there. Whatever the court makes available through their electronic docket, you can have access to those. And then if any of the documents that they've stamped, of course, you'll have access to the conform stamp copy. So let me just try that. Let me try the certificate of compulsory arbitration. And so now I not only ask the court to give me their docket, now I'm asking them to give me their version of the document that they've stamped. So let's give Pima's test system a moment to give us their document. I believe it's up and running right now. Looks like it. Yep, there it is. Great. So again, not a real filing, but I now have access to the conform stamp copy from Pima, and I can print it. I can save it to my hard drive, whatever I need. Okay. So let me go ahead and close that. And I'm going to go back to my filing details page by clicking the filing details button here. So when you are filing into the all other counties group of counties, and the status is now e-filed, to get access to the conform stamped copies, you'll click the View Court Case Documents button. That's going to give you access to the docket, which will give you access to the stamped documents. Now, by the way, this button, View Court Case Documents, is also available to you in Pima, as you see here, and in Maricopa. So it's available in all of the jurisdictions. So you'll get access to the electronic docket for any of the jurisdictions in Arizona that you're filing into. Okay? And just so you know, this button will not be here until the status of your filing is e-filed. So if this particular filing was still in status delivered, for example, this button would not be accessible. But the moment the clerk accepts your filing and it changes to e-filed, then this View Court Case Documents button immediately appears. Okay? Now, the other important thing is, when do they make their conform stamp copies available to you? Because again, there are differences. So if you're filing into the all other counties group, they do overnight processing, and so the conform stamp copies will be made available to you the very next morning. So if the clerk, let's say, accepted your filing at 3 in the afternoon, they do overnight processing. The very next morning, your conform stamp copies should be available to you through AZTurboCourt. Okay. When you're filing into Pima or Maricopa, they process more readily, and so their conform stamp copies should be available to you within an hour after the clerk accepts the filing. So again, if the clerk accepted it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the conform stamp copies should be available to you by 4 o'clock. Now, we don't actually have any control over that. It's really up to the court as to how quickly they process their documents and make them available, but the moment they are, they'll be available through AZTurboCourt. Okay? So there you go. That is case initiation in the different jurisdictions, in different filing scenarios through AZTurboCourt. So now I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm about to switch to what we call subsequent filings, filing into existing cases. Interestingly, the jurisdictional differences and the different options are actually greater for filing into existing cases. So the differences between Maricopa and Pima and the all of the counties group, they actually are, there's even more significant differences when you're filing into an existing case. So it's really important for you to be made aware of that. But before I do that, I want to show you one piece of functionality particularly helpful for case initiation. You can actually use this for case initiation or subsequent filings, but it's really helpful for case initiation because it's going to allow you to create initiating filings much, much faster. Because the court does need this information up front to initiate your case, and even though you only need to provide it one time, you know, it is additional questions. We know that takes you time. We're always looking for ways to save you time. And so we've come up with some functionality to do that. And like I said, it's particularly helpful for case initiation. So the basic concept that I'm about to show you is oftentimes your initiating filings have a lot of similarities to them, right? So let's say you're initiating on behalf of the same client, even though you're suing different people. Well, a lot of the information all of a sudden is the same, right? Who the attorneys are is the same. Who the client is the same. Maybe the nature of that filing might actually be very similar, even though who's being sued may be different, right? And so there's a lot of common information there. So rather than having to retype it each time, just take one of your previously initiating filings for that client and copy it and reuse it, and then just change any of the information that you need to change for this new filing, right? A new defendant, for example, or a slightly different set of details in terms of the dollar amount, for example, right? But reuse information you've already provided, right? And so let me demonstrate how that's going to work. And I'm going to talk through a particular filing scenario. This certainly may not be directly applicable to the type of cases you handle, but just imagine the types of clients and the cases that you do handle and how you might be able to use this functionality. Okay, so let's just say our law firm represents a very large construction company, and this company has been involved in a huge project that's been going on for 18 months. They're creating hundreds of housing units that they're building, and they're working with lots of different subcontractors, right? So you've got an electrical subcontractor, and you've got the people doing the roofing, and you've got somebody else doing the paving, you've got somebody else doing the landscaping, you've got a separate contractor who's installing all of the windows for the entire, hundreds of units, and so on and so forth. The project's been going horribly wrong. Several of the subcontractors have been screwing up, and your client now needs to sue them, several of them, right? It's not a class action, it's just several separate civil lawsuits against several subcontractors, okay? Well, rather than creating 5 or 6 initiating filings from scratch, just create one and then copy it and reuse it, okay? So here I am. I've created my first initiating filing. So here's my client, Anderson Construction, and this is against one of the subcontractors. It's the Wilson Corporation who is doing all of the windows for this complex. And if I click on that form set number, I can see the status is completed, right? I haven't submitted it yet to the court. I may or may not have attached documents for this filing. It doesn't really matter. What I'm really looking for is the interview, right? The completed interview. And so here it is. I've got a completed interview. And now all I'm going to do is click Copy for New Form Set. So that's one of the other buttons here at the top. Copy for New Form Set. Now you can read how all this works, but really all you need to do is click Submit and then complete your filing. AZTurboCourt just created a complete duplicate of that filing, and all I need to do is make a couple of minor changes to it. So we already know where we're filing. We already know that we're initiating a new case. So who the attorneys are, that's not going to be changing, right? Let me just jump into the plaintiff section. Who the plaintiffs are, that's not going to be changing, right? So really the only thing I'm changing at this point is who the defendant is. So I'm actually going to skip. I clicked on those sections just to kind of show them to you, but I'm actually going to just click Copy for New Form Set, skip over everything here, just jump right into the defendant section, and just change the name of the defendant. Okay, the Hopkins Corp. Click Next to save it. And now the same thing. In this section, there's very little that's likely to be different. The case category, it's probably still going to be contracts and 20 or more structures. If the case was subject to FAST or compulsory arbitration, it's going to be the same for this defendant. That's probably not going to change at all. I'm still going to be filing a complaint or whatever my main document was. Chances are my emergency order selections are going to be identical. The only thing that might change in this section is the discovery tier level as it pertains, let's say, to the dollar amount. Okay, so maybe this one wasn't as expensive, and it was only $45,000 worth of damages or whatever it happens to be, right? So all I did was I created my initiating filing once. Then I copied it and simply changed the name of the defendant, and then I just double-checked that my discovery tier level was appropriate. Click Next, and then I'm just going to jump into the preview section, and I've got a brand new initiating filing ready to go, completely different form set number, ready for me to attach my documents. And I can keep doing that. I can just click Copy for New Form Set again, and then go after the landscaper, and so forth, right? So just think about this in terms of how you might reuse initiating filings through AZTurboCourt to save yourself some time for future initiating filings. It's super helpful. Okay, now let's take a look at subsequent filings into existing cases. I'm going to go ahead and set up a few filings that I have pre-established so that I can walk you through these different filing scenarios. And on this one, yep, that's the one. Give that just a moment. Okay, so now that we're looking into subsequent filings into existing cases, Maricopa is online, right? Because you can use AZTurboCourt to file into Maricopa's existing cases. So now we've got the Maricopa approach, the PIMA approach, and the all other counties approach, right? So those three approaches. And I'm going to be, again, showing you two different scenarios. I'm going to start off with a very simple subsequent filing, a very common one, actually, and that's going to be filed into PIMA. And then I'm going to show you a more complicated one that I'll file into the all other counties group. And again, I'll be doing comparisons between the different approaches. All right. So the process is the same. It's that same three-step process. Answer some questions, which in this situation will be very few questions. So answer some questions, attach your documents, and electronically submit everything. So you begin the same way. You're logged in, you're in Arizona, you say you need to do a general civil filing, you indicate where you're filing. So here I've said I'm filing into PIMA, but this time I'm going to say I'm filing into an existing case. All right, because I'm choosing that route, I need to provide the case number, the PIMA case number. And whatever jurisdiction you've selected, we will show you their valid case number formats so you know what they're looking for, so we can help, so we can find it for you, okay? Now, if, for example, so this was PIMA, but let's just say I was filing in a Yavapai case. Okay, so they've got a very, very different case number format than PIMA does, right? So, like I said, we're going to show that to you so you know what to enter there, okay? The other thing that's very important to note when you're filing into an existing case is if you're ever filing into a Mojave case, it's very important for you to know this. So Mojave, you see here, has three different case number formats based on the location. And the distinction is the prefix. Okay, so each prefix here corresponds to the location. Okay, but when Mojave stamps their documents with the case number, they don't include the prefix. They only include this portion, which I've just highlighted on the documents. So if you're looking at your documents, you're only going to see this portion of the case number. And if you come here and enter just that, we're not going to find it in their system, okay? So that's why we show this to you, so that you know, like, oh, I've got to include this prefix when I enter in this case number for this case, which is, happening in this location versus Kingman, for example, okay? So just an important heads up about filing into Mojave cases. All right, I'm going to go back to PIMA for this scenario. Okay, there we go. I put in my case number. So now when I click Next, AZTurboCourt is actually going to reach out to PIMA's system and essentially ask them, do you have this case number in your case management system for general civil filings? If it is not found, we'll leave you on the screen and you'll see a message alerting you that that case number couldn't be found, and then you can try again, right? But if we do find it, then we'll just take you directly into the TurboCourt interview, where you know it's not, they found it, and you can proceed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click next. And there you go. I'm in the interview, which means that case number was found. And when I click next, we'll confirm that by showing you the case name. And you can look at that and say, yep, that's my case. In PIMA and in the all other counties group, we'll also show you the case participants. In Maricopa, currently we're only showing you the case name. But you can look at that and say, yep, that's my case. Let's proceed. Or you might say, well, wait a minute, that's not my case. Apparently, that's a valid case number in PIMA, but that's not my case. And maybe you transpose those last two digits and, got it wrong, and that's okay. Just click change case number, put in the right case number, and then proceed. All right, so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, yep, that's my case. I need to file some more documents in it. Okay, great. I click next. All right, now these next set of questions, how they are worded, where they appear, when they appear, that will vary based on whether or not you're filing into Maricopa or PIMA or the all other counties group. Okay, so again, 3 different approaches. So rule of thumb, just follow along with what's presented to you on screen for this jurisdiction, and you shouldn't go wrong. So in PIMA, when you're filing into an existing case, the very first question you're being asked is, have you previously paid your appearance fee? Yes or no, or not applicable. And you can see that's a link that takes you to the FAQ, because there are certain instances where a first appearance fee is not applicable. And if that's appropriate, then you would select that choice. But I'm going to say yes. So in this simple scenario that I'm filing into PIMA, this is a case where I've already been filing on this case, right? This is not my first appearance. I'm not filing my initial answer. I'm just filing more documents into this existing case. This is a very, very common filing scenario. This is pretty much what you'll be doing a lot of, right? And so I want to show you this one first. So here I am in PIMA. Have you previously paid your appearance fee? Yes, great. I click next. So that's a simple question. Okay, who are you? So we know from the court's case management system who they have on record for this case. So let's just pretend I'm Matthew. I find my name there and I select it and say, yep, that's me. I'm the one filing. Great. Now there are some additional options here. There's a checkbox to indicate whether or not the parties I represent have an active order from the court waiving or deferring my filing fees, either for the entire case or for a specific document. If that's applicable, go ahead and check the box and we'll suppress the filing fees. Otherwise, you don't do anything with it. And also, have you been appointed by the court, let's say as an arbitrator or a mediator? If so, check the appropriate box. Otherwise, there's really nothing to do on this screen. You simply skip it, okay? And I'll click next. And that's it. All I'm doing at this point is indicating what my main document is that I'm filing at this moment in time. Now remember, when you're filing into PIMA or the all other counties group of counties, you can file up to 6 main documents per filing. Now that's different from Maricopa. Maricopa at this point in time still can only have 1 main document per filing. And again, they will be expanding that. We just don't know what their time frame is. So in Maricopa, it's only 1 main document per filing. But everywhere else, PIMA and the all other counties group, you can attach up to 6 main documents per filing, and we recommend that you do that. It'll probably save you some money, but it's also much, much easier to track, right? If you've got 6 motions, just put them all in 1 filing. It's much easier to track 1 filing than 6 separate filings, right? So, and you can mix and match your document types, right? You can include in a single filing, 3 motions, a couple of affidavits, and a notice, for example, right? So pool your documents together. But the court still wants to know for this filing what your number 1 main document is. And so the way they make that available to you in PIMA is you have these document categories as checkboxes, and you can only check 1. Okay. I'll just scroll down and show you. There's a long list of categories here. I could say, hey, I'm filing a motion. And then go to the drop-down list, and you'll see the list of motions that PIMA makes available. Again, all of these lists, these categories and these actual document names, they are specific to this jurisdiction. So this, again, will speed up the processing of your filing. So you can look here and say, I'm filing, you know, a motion to compel, for example, okay? And then that's it. There's nothing more. You're done. That's the interview, right? And now I can go ahead and attach my documents. So I'm not kidding when I said you'll do this in 60 seconds. Like, I already took a lot of time, you know, explaining more, right? But you're literally 3 or 4 clicks and you're done, and now you're already attaching your documents. So anytime you're filing into existing cases, that first step is super fast, okay? Now, Maricopa is very similar in terms of the way they present this main document selection. Now, their list will be a little bit different, but it's the same approach. You'll have your categories like this, and then your drop-down list of the documents within that category, okay? So just really quickly again, let me just walk you through that. For your subsequent filing, you're indicating where you're filing. You provide your case number. We find it. You confirm, yes, that's my case. Great. You answer a couple of questions. Again, single clicks. There you go, that's me. Nothing's applicable there. And there's my main document, right? And that's it, I'm done. Now I start attaching my documents, okay? So that's a very common scenario for filing. And it'll look, this is the PIMA approach. If we were doing this in Maricopa, it would be very similar. Again, those first few questions, you might see them in slightly different locations and a different order in terms of the order that they're asked, but essentially it's the same thing, okay? So now what I want to do is switch over to the All of the Counties group to, first of all, show you the differences in the way the questions are presented, but also I want to show you a slightly more complicated filing scenario and show you some of the differences between the All of the Counties group versus PIMA and Maricopa. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to, let's see, this is going to be a filing in Pinal County, but that's part of the All of the Counties group as well. Okay, so just to show you how I got here, I'm filing in Pinal. Existing case, I provide a Pinal case number. We found it, great. And this is what they have on file in the court's case management system. So let me explain this filing scenario. I represent the defendants. So the plaintiff, Bank of America, is suing my clients, the Santiagos. There's one private attorney currently listed. That's not me. So I'm going to assume that that's Bank of America's attorney. Okay? In this scenario, I'm filing on this case for the very first time. My clients were sued, and now we're responding for the very first time. So this is my first filing in the case, and I'm going to be providing an answer. Okay, so that's the scenario. Okay, so let's proceed. I click Next. So notice that this is different from PIMA, because PIMA was first asking, have you paid your first appearance fee? And then they were asking, who are you? In the All of the Counties group, they're asking first, who are you? Okay, so again, just follow along with what's presented to you on screen for that jurisdiction. So in this scenario, there's currently only one attorney listed in the court's case management system, and that's not me. So I'm going to simply say, hey, I'm not on the list yet. Okay, that's not a problem. Click Next and provide your information. And again, it's all pre-populated for you from your profile. So once again, the only thing you're needing to do is answer a yes/no question. Is this your mailing address? Okay. And then you click Next, and you indicate with check boxes, who do you represent? So I'm representing both of the Santiagos. Okay. And here is where the question is being asked, have you previously paid your appearance fee? And I'm going to say no. Actually, this is our first time filing on this case. Here also is where there's a box to indicate whether or not you've got an active order waiving or deferring fees. Okay? So similar questions, just presented differently. Okay? Now, before we proceed, let me just go back to the beginning here. What if you are, in fact, in a situation where you've been appointed by the court as a mediator or an arbitrator? It might happen from time to time for some of you. So, First time filing on this case, I'm not on the list yet, and I've been appointed by the court. And so here a drop-down will appear. Again, this is the all other counties approach. And here's where I can indicate, how I've been appointed, what my role is. Notice the interview changes because I'm not asked who I represent in this situation, because we know that, hey, you're a court-appointed mediator, you don't represent either side. Okay? So again, the dynamic nature of the interview based on the way I'm responding to these questions. But I'm going to go back and say, no, I'm just a regular private attorney. I'm not on the list yet. This is me, and I represent these people. We haven't paid our appearance fee yet. Okay, that's it. And again, that was like just a few clicks, right? And then I click next. And so the way they visually make this document selection available is, instead of the categories being presented as a list of checkboxes, the document category is just another drop-down list. Okay. So again, I could say I'm filing a motion. And then I'm going to get a list of motions that you can file in the All Other Counties group. This is a different list than PIMA has. And it's a really long list. My goodness. Okay. Really long list of motions. And if for some reason your motion is not listed in this list, you can still say just a generic motion. Okay. And I'm going to skip these checkboxes for the time being. Okay. But that's it. Again, a few clicks, even when this is your first appearance, right? And then you select your document category and the corresponding document, and then you're done. Okay. But I do want to show you a more complicated scenario, which is, this is the first time I'm filing on this case, and I'm filing an answer. And then I can look at the different choices, and I'm going to say an answer with a counterclaim. And notice that all of a sudden, new questions appear. Again, because we know that in the All Other Counties group, in this filing scenario, they need some additional documents. If it was my first time filing and I'm just filing a motion, they're not asking me these things. If I'm filing this answer, now they're asking me these things. Okay? So we, again, know what they need, and we'll make sure you provide it to them so that they don't reject your filing or delay the processing of it. Okay, so what happens? I'm first time filing and I'm filing an answer. Let's click next and see what happens. Okay, the court wants to know whether the certificate of compulsory arbitration has already been filed in this case. That is to say, did opposing counsel file this document? Yes or no? And if no, do you want AZTurboCourt to generate one for you? Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, actually opposing counsel did file that certificate of compulsory arbitration. Maybe because they used AZTurboCourt, I don't know. But one has been filed. Okay, great. So then I get to tell the court my opinion of that. So in this situation, opposing counsel, when they initiated the case, they filed a certificate of compulsory arbitration. And in that, they indicated whether or not they think the case either is or is not subject to compulsory arbitration. And what I'm now doing is telling the court whether or not I agree with that assessment or not. And so for this, what I'm showing you here is that opposing counsel indicated that they think that the case is subject to compulsory arbitration, okay, that it is. And I'm saying we don't agree. And the reason we don't agree is because we're going to be filing a counterclaim that exceeds those compulsory arbitration limits. Okay, so that might be one scenario, right? So again, just answer appropriately, and then AZTurboCourt will automatically generate for you, in this scenario, a controverting certificate, because I don't agree with what opposing counsel had filed, right? So we'll automatically generate this for you. Same process, just a checkbox for your digital signature, and we'll generate this document for you, okay? So there you go. Coming back to this main document selection, a couple of other things I need to point out to you that are very, very important. If you remember when we were doing case initiation and it came time to attach supporting documents, when we were filing in the All Other Counties group of counties, we could list the proposed order or proposed judgment or proposed notice of hearing as a supporting document, right? But in PIMA, we couldn't list those document types as supporting documents because PIMA needed these document types as main documents, right? Not supporting documents. Well, similarly, in the All Other Counties group, they cannot take these document types as main documents. You can't say that your proposed order is your main document because their system can't consume it. It'll get rejected. So what do you do if you're filing into an existing case and you just need to file a proposed order or a proposed notice of hearing or a proposed judgment? Well, you've got a couple different scenarios or possibilities. You can click to read these special instructions. This takes you to the FAQ. It explains this in detail and gives you some of these options, but let me walk you through some of the common ones. You could, for example, say that you're filing a notice, and then these courts have specifically set up a type of notice specifically for this. So there you go. Notice of filing a proposed judgment, notice of filing a proposed order, notice of filing a proposed notice of hearing, right? So the notice would be the main document, and then your proposed order would be the supporting document to the notice. Okay, so that would be one possibility. What if you're not filing a notice? Well, you might be filing a motion, for example. And, it could be all sorts of motions, but let me just take a look here. Okay, declaratory judgment. So the motion becomes the main document, and then the proposed judgment, for example, would be the supporting document to the motion. So that would be another possibility. So the whole point, though, is that you need to declare some type of document as your main document, and then these proposed document types would be a supporting document to that main document, okay, because they can't take it any other way. Okay, now that's different than in PIMA and in Maricopa. I'm showing you PIMA now, but it is very similar in Maricopa. So, for example, I could say judgment, proposed judgment is my main document in PIMA, or in Maricopa, order and proposed order is my main document, right? So those proposed document types are main documents in PIMA and Maricopa, okay? But they're not in the All Other Counties group. They have to be supporting documents, okay? Okay. Last thing I want to talk about before we submit this filing is subpoenas, and if you ever need to have a subpoena issued. Now, Arizona has very, very strict requirements about the formatting of the subpoena, and if you create your own subpoena and attach it and submit it, and it doesn't meet their requirements, they will reject it. The other thing about subpoenas is that they require additional fees. And so in PIMA and in the All Other Counties group, if you need to have a subpoena issued, you'll actually have AZTurboCourt generate the subpoena for you. So you're not going to create your own subpoena and then simply attach it. They won't accept it. They'll reject that. So you're going to actually have AZTurboCourt generate the subpoena for you. It'll for sure meet the formatting requirements, and it'll allow us to determine the additional fees so that we collect it up front. So again, that there's no delay in processing and getting your subpoena issued. Okay. Now, Maricopa does not do that. They don't currently, have the ability to deal with subpoenas electronically that way. They will in the future as they continue to expand, but currently they don't. So in Maricopa, if you need a subpoena issued, you would do that through the traditional means that you do right now. Okay. But everywhere else, you would have AZTurboCourt generated for you. Okay. When you are filing in PIMA, if you need a subpoena issued, the subpoena has to be identified as your #1 main document. Now remember, you're going to be able to attach up to 6 main documents. So you can still attach other motions and notices or letters or whatever, certificates, whatever you need. Okay. But the subpoena itself has to be the #1 main document that you identify here in the interview. And so scroll on down and you'll see system generated document, because we're going to be generating it for you, Precipe. Okay. So that's what you're going to select. You've got a couple different choices there, and you would select subpoena. Okay. Then when you click Next, you'll see that there's some additional questions because we're going to collect that information and generate the subpoena for you. This is very similar in the All Other Counties group. These pages are slightly different there, but it's almost the same. And so you could request a subpoena for attendance of witnesses at a hearing or trial, for taking depositions, for producing evidence or inspecting premises. You could select 1, 2, or all 3 of these checkboxes. But whichever checkbox you check, then the corresponding fields for that checkbox become required. Okay? So now these all need to be filled out for the subpoena for taking a deposition. Okay? Then there's an additional yes/no question per this rule. Do you want this language added to the subpoena? If you say yes, then this language will be added to the subpoena automatically. If you say no, it won't be. Okay? So a simple yes/no. And then some other details about the names that go on the subpoena, which is the PIMA way of doing things. Okay? So again, in PIMA, if you need a subpoena issued, you would select this as your main document. Okay? Now, in the All Other Counties group, you could do it that way as well. You could say your main document is this going to be a subpoena. Okay? And then you get those additional questions, just like you saw. Again, slightly different than PIMA's approach, but almost the same. Okay? So that's your main document. Okay? You could do it that way. But they give you another option in the All Other Counties group. I could still say that I'm filing an answer with a counterclaim, and I also need a subpoena issued. Okay, so it's an and. So I can list my answer as my main document, and I also want you to generate a subpoena for me. Okay, so that's additional in the All Other Counties group. Okay, so there you go. Those are the variances or most of the variances that you'll see between the counties when you're filing into an existing case. Now, remember, the rule of thumb, just follow along with what's presented on screen. So you may answer certain questions a different way, and you may see a new question that you haven't seen today during the training, right? Just know that based on however you responded, AZTurboCourt knows the court has some other requirement associated with that, and we'll make sure you cover that requirement, okay? All right, so I'm going to switch back to this PIMA filing. I'm going to go ahead and file this affidavit. And so here we are. Again, for this subsequent filing, I really did take care of the interview portion in 60 seconds. It was a few clicks, my main document, and here I am. I'm ready to go already. So here I am. I've got a completed form set, completed filing, unique number, whatever the fees might be. In this scenario, for forms that AZTurboCourt would be generating, there are no forms that are going to be filed with the court that AZTurboCourt generated in this particular filing scenario. I said, hey, my main document is an affidavit. It's not my first time filing. So we didn't have to generate anything for you. But we do still generate this summary sheet. It's not filed with the court. So you can disregard it if you want. I'll just very quickly show it to you so you can see what this is. Okay, so we're showing the jurisdiction, the case number, your form set number, filing attorney information, and that main document. So if this is helpful to you, great, you can use it. If not, you can disregard it. Okay. Now let me just very quickly switch over to that All Other Counties filing and show you in this scenario, AZTurboCourt. Oops. Sure I did all that right. In this filing scenario, AZTurboCourt is generating documents for you because it's your first time filing and you're filing an answer and so forth. So we generated the first appearance notice for you, okay? So you don't have to create that. And again, that controverting certificate of compulsory arbitration. Okay, so sometimes like I said, sometimes we'll create forms for you if we know the court needs them. Other times, like in that PIMA filing where you're just filing, a notice or an affidavit, there's nothing for us to generate for you. Okay. Okay. So back to PIMA. All right. So there's my affidavit placeholder. I'm going to go ahead and attach that. Again, you're going to want to give it a meaningful name, not this. Choose my file. And notice also that when you're attaching a main document in an existing case, you have an additional question here, which is, does this document request or require a judicial ruling or a decision? Okay, so let's just say you're filing you're attaching a motion right now. Then I'm going to say, yeah, I need the judge to make a ruling or a decision on that motion, right? But if I'm just filing, let's say, a letter or an affidavit, I'm going to say no. Now the judge, of course, is going to have access to it. They're going to be able to see it, but I don't specifically need them to make a ruling on my affidavit, for example. Okay, so when you're attaching main documents in an existing case, you'll see this question. Okay, I'll go ahead and click Save. I can attach a supporting document if I want. And I can attach 5 more main documents. Right? So I have my affidavit, but I still have 5 more main documents. And because this is an existing case, I'm not limited in terms of what kinds of documents I can attach here. So if I click on the attach link, you'll see lots of document categories, pretty much everything. Right? So here's where I could also file a motion, right? A motion to compel. And yes, I need the judge to rule on my motion. Right? And then that motion can have supporting documents. And now I have 4 more main documents. So again, in a single filing, you could file 6 motions or 3 motions, a couple of notices and an affidavit, any combination of those document types. Okay? So we highly recommend that you do that. All right, when you are ready to proceed, you go to the next step, right? Which is to electronically submit everything. However, because this is an existing case, you actually have another option available to you. When we were doing case initiation, the only service that was available was e-filing. But now, because we're in an existing case, you can also choose e-filing with e-service, because in Arizona, they now allow for e-service rather than paper service. And AZTurboCourt has a very robust implementation of e-service, and it is incredibly efficient. It's a great way to do service. And so I want to walk you through that to show you if you decide to take that option, because it really does make life a lot easier. And it gives you more capabilities in the world of service as well. So I'm going to say e-filing with e-service. And so rather than immediately going to making my payment, I'm in fact going to set up my e-service. Okay? So I'm going to click Next. And so I get one additional screen, which is to prepare the e-service. So let me talk about e-service in Arizona and how this works. Traditional way of doing service is you have, however many documents you're filing. You file them with the court, they stamp whatever documents they stamp, you get that all back. You make copies of those, right? If you're serving 1 person, 3 people, 10 people, however many people you need to serve, you're just going to make all those copies of those documents, put them in envelopes, address them, and then get somebody to serve those people, right? So that might be somebody within your own firm. It could be an outside service, right? And then they're going to serve. They're going to have proof of service, which they're going to return to you, which you can then show to the court so that you have met your obligation for service, right? That's the way service has been up until recently. You don't have to do any of that anymore. In the world of e-service, none of that is needed. In the world of e-service in Arizona, The only thing you need to provide AZTurboCourt is the person's name and email address, and we will take care of the rest. We will serve it, we will show it got served, you'll have your proof of service, like everything. So there's all those other steps, you can skip them now. The only thing you need to do is tell us who you want to e-serve. Now, that could be one person. In theory, it could be 100 people. There's no limit, right, however big the case is. So what you're going to do is you're going to set up your e-service recipient list. Now, as you can see, there's already names and email addresses here because this is a case that I've already been filing on. So AZTurboCourt remembers who I've been e-serving. I'll actually talk about that in just a moment. But when you first get here, the very first time you're filing on this case, we don't know who you want to e-serve. So it'll look something like this. It'll be an empty e-service recipient list. And you'll tell us who you want to e-serve. You only do this one time for this case, and then AZTurboCourt is going to remember it for you going forward. So I could click this first link, Add New Recipient Manually, and it'll simply give me a blank row. And I'm going to put in the person's name and their email address, and that's it. Now this third column you can enter, but it's optional. It's just if you want like a description of what their role is or anything else about them if you want. But otherwise, all you're needing is their name and their email address. And then if you want to add, if you have somebody else, maybe there's multiple attorneys on this case, I'll click that link again, and I'll just get another blank row and just put in another name and email address. Again, I'm only doing this one time for this case. Another way I can add people to my e-service recipient list is this second link. I can look them up in my e-service address book. Well, what is my e-service address book? Well, anytime you e-serve through AZTurboCourt on any case, we will automatically grab that person's name and email address and automatically add it to your global e-service address book so you can reuse them, right? John Smith might be opposing counsel on this case, and 9 months later you may face him again on some other case, and you don't remember his email address, and you don't need to. You can just look him up in your e-service address book. I'll click on that link. You can look him up based on even just a portion of his name or a portion of his email address, or you can even just leave them both blank and just search for everybody in your address book. And you can select one person. You could select several people if you wanted to. I'm just going to scroll through and pick a few names that I would like to work with. Okay. So I selected several people. I click Add Selected, and they've been added. And I've got a blank row there, so I'm just going to click Remove and get rid of that. Okay. So here's what's going to happen. When I click Submit and make my payment, as soon as the status of my filing goes from completed to delivered, which means I know the court now has it, all of these people are going to be emailed instantaneously. And in that email will be a link. And when they click on that link, it will take them to all of my documents that I just filed with the court. Hence, they've been served. And I'm actually going to be able to see that that happened. I'll have proof of that. No more making copies, getting it to them, retrieving the proof of service, whatever the cost is for those things, all of that gets skipped. Okay? The other thing that you can do is, well, first of all, actually, let me just back up for a second. So as I mentioned, you only do this one time on this case. You set up your e-service recipient list, and you're done. AZTurboCourt is going to remember it for you going forward. So the next time you have to file in this case, when you come to the screen, it's already ready for you to go, as you saw when I first got here. All the people were there ready to go, ready to be e-served. So that's really helpful. I don't have to keep remembering all the folks that need to be served. And it doesn't just remember it for me. It actually remembers it for everybody in our firm that's working on this case, that's filing on this case. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Ellen down the hall is the lead attorney on this case. She's been filing on this case. She's been e-serving all along. I was recently added to the case at our firm, as a junior counsel or whatever. And Ellen has asked me to prepare some documents, those affidavits and so forth, and to submit them. Great. And she said, use eService. Okay, cool. So here I am. I log in, under my name, right? I prepare the documents, and sure enough, there's all of the folks that Ellen's been e-serving all along. She doesn't even need to tell me who they are. It's all remembered for everybody within our firm that's working on this case. Okay, it's super efficient. And any changes you make are shared and saved. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that opposing counsel calls up and says, hey, Michael Hedges is no longer working for us on this case. Can you please remove him from eService? And we have somebody else that I want to give you to replace him. Okay, great, not a problem. So I can just come here and remove Michael Hedges. Oh boy, I clicked the wrong remove, and I don't actually remember who that was that I just removed. Well, again, you don't have to, because AZTurboCourt remembers that for you. And that's what the third link is for. This link shows you who the last group of people were that were served electronically on this case. And so if you click on that, it'll show you everybody that was last e-served on this case. Okay? And then I could just click add to my form set, and we won't add the same name, email combination twice, so they're not going to get more than one email, right? So if I mistakenly remove somebody, I can just click add, and they'll just get put right back in. Okay? Get rid of that double. Okay. So yeah, I could get rid of Michael Hedges or Mary Thompson, for example. I could remove her, and instead I could add somebody else. And there we go, make those changes. So Sarah is now going to be one of the people who gets e-served. I don't need to tell Ellen this for the next time she's filing on the case, because the next time she goes to file in this case, she's going to see the new e-service recipient list. It's all shared. Like I said, really efficient. Okay, so let's go ahead and submit this filing so I can show you what happens with all of this e-service. So I've got my name, again, for my digital signature. I'm going to go ahead and click Submit. Payment is required, of course, so we're going to go to End Court again. This time, instead of manually entering in my payment method, I'm going to use one of my saved payment methods. Right? Remember, I was saving that credit card, for example. So I'll click on my Save Payment tab and choose from one of my saved payment methods. Now, you're not going to have this many saved payment methods, probably. I'm just going to pick one of these. And whatever it is, of course, the corresponding billing information is automatically pre-populated for you. An important thing to note here, though, is it's possible that you yourself never actually saved a payment method, and yet here's a list of saved payment methods. Or, maybe you did save one credit card, and yet in your saved payment list, there are other things here, like another credit card or a corporate checking account. And that's because anybody within your firm who is designated as a financial administrator, they can pre-register payment methods like credit cards and banking accounts, and then give you access to use them for your AZTurboCourt filings. So that's why you may see in this Save Payment tab payment methods that you yourself didn't create, but somebody apparently trusts you enough to give you access to use them. Okay, so there you go. Let's go ahead and make this payment. Hopefully that credit card is still good. Give End Court a moment to process that. Okay, looking good. There it is. It has been delivered. PIMA just told us they received the filing. Okay, so again, we can view the payment receipt, but we've already done that. So let's just go right into the form set, right into the filing. So it's a delivered filing. I just filed this affidavit with an attachment and a motion to compel. Now, we've already seen the Messages tab. I don't need to show you that again. We've already seen the Payments tab. I don't need to show you that. But we now have an e-service tab. So let's click on that. So these 5 people were just sent an email. Here's the date and time it was sent. The status, what we call the status, shows pending, which means they haven't yet opened the email and accessed the documents, which makes sense, right? I just sent it. Once they do access them, though, it'll change from pending to accepted, which basically tells you that they actually opened the email and accessed the documents. Now, in the world of paper service, you won't know that, right? You know that it got served, but you don't actually know when opposing counsel actually opened up the envelope and actually looked at your documents, right? But in the world of e-service, you can see that. And by the way, the fact that it's showing you the date and time that it was sent, this is your proof of service. And the court has access to this as well, and they verify this as proof of service. Because if for any reason any of these email servers were not able to consume that email and make it available to this recipient, you would not see this here. You would see another piece of information, a type of error message that would show you that it didn't go through, you know, and then you'd want to make sure that you've got the right email address, or that, you know, that their email server is still working, that it's not full, you know, things like that. But the moment you see this, that's your proof of service, okay? Here's some other interesting things that you can do in the world of e-service that you can't readily do in the world of traditional service. I could add somebody after the fact and e-serve them. So let's just say, you know, John Smith, opposing counsel, calls me up. I've just filed these motions, and now he calls me up after the fact, and he says, you know what, I just added another attorney to the case. Would you mind serving him those documents? Now, in the world of paper, you know, you're not going to do that. But in the world of electronic service, you could easily do that, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. So I could, after the fact, add somebody else. And then click Send e-service notifications. And so there we go. There's Chris Johnson. He was served at a different date and time. And now he's got access to the documents I just filed. And AZTurboCourt will remember that going forward, so I don't need to remember the next time I'm filing on this case, oh yeah, I need to serve Chris also. And I don't need to tell Ellen down the hall that. Next time she goes to file in this case, Chris Johnson's going to be in the e-service recipient list, right? So it's very helpful. You could also resend any of these emails. Now, again, you're not obligated to do so, but you have that ability. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you were talking with opposing counsel, with John Smith, on Friday. You let him know, hey, I'm going to be filing, you know, several motions, and now it's like Monday, and you did. And now it's Monday or Tuesday, and he calls you up and said, hey, Stephen, I thought you said you were going to file those motions on Friday. And you say, hey, John, I did. And he says, I didn't get the e-service email that I normally get. Then you can come here and you can say, well, John, it went through. Now, you know, maybe he inadvertently deleted it. Maybe it went into his spam folder this time. It doesn't really matter, because you're not responsible for any of that, right? Just like when you have proof that you delivered the physical envelope with the documents in there, whether they read them and open that up and read them is not your responsibility, right? Your responsibility was to confirm that you actually served them. You've already done that, right? But in the world of e-service, if he calls up and says, I don't know what happened to it, but could you resend it? You can do that. And again, it's a simple click and simply resend. Okay? So it was resent at a different date and time. I could click on the history link and actually see that that happened. Okay, so there's a lot you can do in the world of e-service. And now I'm going to go back to my home page. So what is it like to be e-served? Because you yourself may get e-served by opposing counsel that's using AZTurboCourt, right? And so what's going to happen is you're going to get an email. And in that email is going to be a link. And when you click on that link, it's going to take you to the documents that opposing counsel just filed with the court, rather than receiving paper copies. So what does that look like? Well, let me just come to this. This is one of our fake email addresses here. So if you get e-served, you'll see something like this. It'll say AZTurboCourt e-service notification. I can see I've got a few of them here. And I'll just go ahead and click on that incoming email. And it's going to show you the case number, the case name, the jurisdiction. It's even going to show you their form set number. And then there's going to be a link. And so when I click on this link, it's going to take me to their documents, whether it was 1 document or 20 documents, whatever it is that they just filed with the court. I've been e-served. This is how I can access the documents. So when I get this email, if I'm already logged into AZTurboCourt, when I click on this link, it'll take me to the documents that they filed. If I'm not currently logged into AZTurboCourt, when I click on the link, well, then I'll quickly log in, and then I can go to their documents, okay? The same is true for anybody that you're e-serving, okay? So they're going to go through the same process. And if they've never used AZTurboCourt before, and they're opposing counsel and you e-serve them, well, then when they click on the link, it'll bring up AZTurboCourt, and they'll quickly register. It doesn't cost them anything. It takes 60 seconds. And then once they register, then they'll have access to your documents. But again, none of that is your responsibility. It is not your obligation that they even open the email, right? You delivered the envelope. You've met your obligation. Anything they do with it from that point forward is up to them, okay? So that's the world of e-service. And a couple of other things. So when you log in, you're immediately brought to your home page. You've seen this before, right? Notice that I have another indicator here that I hadn't seen before when I was logged in as somebody else. This is telling me that I've been e-served 4 times, that I have not yet looked at the documents. Now, I don't know if this is 4 separate filings on the same case or different cases. I don't know yet. But apparently I've been e-served 4 times that I have not yet looked at the documents. And if you look over in your user menu, you'll see a corresponding link, served on me, and whatever that number is, it'll be the same number. And so I can click on that number and see what's going on. All right, well, apparently I'm involved in a Supreme Court filing, a Supreme Court case rather, and then this Mid-First Bank case, apparently they've been doing a bunch of different filings, and so here you go. I've been e-served on all 4 of these filings. I want to look and see what they've been filing. I simply click on View Documents, and I can see all of the documents that opposing counsel just filed. Okay, let's just pretend that this is what they just filed, and I can view them. I can print them. I can save them to my hard drive or network drive, right, or whatever I need to do with them. And notice that the status of this filing is still delivered, which means the court hasn't processed it yet. In theory, they might reject this filing, and yet I have instant access to the documents. Assuming they don't reject it and they do accept it, then of course I'll get access to the conform stamped copies of those documents. Okay? So the world of e-service really gives you lots of additional functionality. And then the other thing that you can do, the other thing I want to show you is that, if you did in fact file several motions at the very end of the day on Friday and e-serve people, in the world of regular service, you don't know when opposing counsel has actually looked at your motions, right? But in the world of e-service, you can. So that's what this other link is for, check e-service status. When I click on that link, I have a number of fields here that will allow me to find my filings that I've e-served other people on. Now, I might just go right to the form set number that I'm looking for, or maybe just a particular case number, and I want to look at the filings there, maybe a particular recipient's email address, or again, you can just leave them all blank. Just click List, and it'll just show you all of the filings that you've e-served others on. Just want to go to one that we haven't seen before recently. Okay, so here's a Maricopa filing that's been e-filed. Let's go to this one. Click on that form set. So I e-served 3 people here, and 2 of them have already accepted. That is to say, they've already clicked on that email and accessed the documents. One of them has not yet. Okay. And if I were to click on the history link, for example, well, that's not a good example. This person keeps opening and closing it. That's a testing environment. You go to this one. Okay, this is kind of more common. So I can see that this opposing counsel first opened my documents at this date. Looks like a little after midnight. All right. So again, let me just go back to the previous screen. You can really see a lot more information in the world of eService. And then the very last thing I want to show you with eService on your home screen here is your address book, that global eService address book. And so if I click on that, I can find anybody I need to. Again, I can just click list and find everybody. I've got 88 people already in my address book for eService. I can remove people from my eService address book just by clicking the X next to them. I can change their email address. So let's say opposing counsel calls me up and says, hey, I've changed my email address. Can you update it, please, for eService? That's important, right? So sure, of course. So let's say Ada Smithfield wants to change their email address. So I'll find her, change it, let's say to Ada Smithfield, click Save, and let me just confirm that that held. Yeah, there it is, right? And so anywhere that this person was included in an eService recipient list on any case, it's now updated and distributed everywhere. So I don't need to remember to update this for this case and then for that case, right? It's distributed throughout the system. So again, very, very efficient. All right, so there you go. That's eService. I highly recommend you giving it a try. All right, last two things I want to bring to your attention, and then we will bring the training to its completion. Some other pieces of functionality that are really important and helpful for you. The first is accessing all of your filings and managing your workload. So as you recall, when you first log in, you're on your home page, we show you your 5 most recent filings. But you, of course, are going to want to have access to all of your filings. A couple of different ways you can access them. You can click this List All link here at the very top. That's going to bring you to the search screen that allows you to access all of your filings. Also, in your user menu, you'll see a link called My Forms. And again, we use these terms synonymously. So My Forms, My Form Sets, My Filings, they're all one and the same thing. So when I click on that link, it brings me to this search screen. And again, I can use these fields in any combination or one at a time to find what I'm looking for. So I could, for example, look for filings within, let's just say, a particular date range. And then click List. And okay, so I worked on 20 filings during that particular date range. Each one of these rows represents a unique filing, and if I need to look at it or work on it, again, I just click on its form set number and it'll take me right into that filing. This list by default is sorted based on the form set number, so the biggest form set number will be at the top. But I can resort it based on any of these column headings that are clickable. So, for example, I could resort it based on the case number and group them that way. Or maybe I use that keyword matter number field, and I could group them and sort them that way, right? Or any of these. And I, of course, can see the status and the fees associated with it and so forth, right? So this is a super helpful tool to work with. So for example, let's say you do use that keyword matter number field to track your clients or your cases. So I want to find, for example, all the filings I did on behalf of this client in all of last year. So I put in that keyword matter number, that date range, and apparently there's 23 filings that I did on behalf of this client in all of 2017. So there was that one filing on the Lamex case, lots of mid-first bank filings, some of those Ralph Gleason filings, and I've got multiple pages so I can go to those other pages. Whatever your search result list is, you can always, here in the upper right-hand corner, click Export to MS Excel, and we'll do just that, export it as an Excel file format, which means you can then bring it into any spreadsheet software, right? So Google Sheets, anything that reads Excel, which is pretty much all of them now. And now you've got the full power of spreadsheet software where you can do subsorting of these columns and adding up of the fees and all of that, right? So very, very helpful. Another thing that is really helpful in working with this search screen is managing your own workload. So for example, remember the statuses as you're going through the process, right? Completed when you finished answering the questions, incomplete if you didn't finish answering the questions, and then delivered and e-filed, right? So what if you did, in fact, you are in the process of creating some initiating filings and you didn't finish answering the questions and you don't remember the form set number? Well, just search for your recent incomplete filings. Now, by the way, you're going to see a lot of different statuses here. Most of these are not relevant to you. The ones that I've been speaking about are the ones that are relevant to you. So, hey, I need to find my recently, the filings I started working on, but I didn't finish them. So you look for your incomplete filings. Let me get rid of that, and let me just change my search criteria again to get, so I know I'll find some filings like this. Okay, so there you go. I found one or several of my incomplete filings, and I'll just click on that form set number. Like I said, AZTurboCourt remembered everything I did up until the last moment, and now I'll just finish it up and then attach my documents. Right, so that's a super fast way to find those. Or look for your completed filings, ones you haven't yet delivered. Right, you finished the interview, but you're in the process of completing your documents so that you can attach them. Right, and again, you may not remember the form set number, so just look for your recent completed filings. And yeah, sure enough, there's that Lamex Corp case in Pima. Let me go ahead and click on that form set number. And right, the affidavit of renewal of judgment, that's the document I was working on. I finished it along with some supporting documents. I'm ready to attach them now. Right, so I'll go ahead and attach them and deliver it. Right, so you use the search screen that way. And by the way, anytime you're on these screens that you see here, one of the buttons at the top, again, list my forms, that takes you to that same search screen. Okay, so that's a helpful way. Look for your recently completed filings, but you haven't delivered them yet. You're very busy. You may be wondering, do I have any filings that I've submitted to the court that they haven't processed yet? So look for delivered filings, and you'll see if there are any filings that you're still waiting for the court to process. And then lastly, and most importantly perhaps, look for your e-filed filings, because again, anytime the status is e-filed, it means you're going to get access to the docket that the court makes available electronically, as well as the conform stamped copies. Right? So these are just some of the ways you can use this search screen that are super helpful. Okay, very last thing, payment reports and managing your saved payment methods. Okay, so in your user menu, you have another link called My Payments. I'll go ahead and click on that now. And it's very similar to the screen you just saw, a lot of different fields that you can use for searching for your filings. Okay, and the key here is that you're really looking at them now from the perspective of the payments, right? And so you could, for example, again, just look for filings over a particular date range. And so, okay, I'm looking at 22 filings for that particular date range. Now, because this is a financial report, it's actually sorted by default based on the transaction date and time. So the most recent transaction date and time is what will show up at the top. But again, you can resort it based on any of these other column headings. Okay, and again, you'll see payment information off to the right. You'll also see in this particular report if a saved payment method was used to actually make that payment, right? And it'll show you the name of that saved payment method. I don't know if we have any. Yeah, okay, so here's a couple where a saved payment method was not used, right? So that means I just manually typed in my credit card or my checking account number, right? So I didn't use a saved payment method there. Okay, so that's an additional column in this report. And for the transaction number link, if you click on it, that's another way to access that payment receipt, which again you can print or just save a digital copy of. Okay, and so here again, I want to see what have we paid in fees for our client A23456 in all of 2017. Okay, so 17 filings, and again I can sort them, let's say, based on the case number if I wanted to, and I can export this to Excel, right, and then group them together and collect all and add up all the fees for the Mid-First Bank case, add up all the fees for the Ralph Gleason case, then add up the total fees, right? Anything you can do with spreadsheet software, it's fantastic. So you have real-time access to all of your financial data for your fees at any time. And then you can use these fields in any combination, get that list, and then export it to Excel file format, or just access a payment receipt, or just view it on screen. Another thing you might want to do actually is you may want to see how much money you've put on a credit card recently, right? So if you're using a saved payment method, you might want to say, hey, show me in the last 3 months how much I've spent on that credit card for these fees, right? So that would be another report, right, from the perspective of the payment method. So lots of different options here. And you can also ask AZTurboCourt to automatically send you financial reports via email on a regular basis if you want to. And so for that, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a button, Preferences for Reports. And when you click on that, you'll see that you can have payment reports sent to you weekly, monthly, or bi-monthly, which is essentially twice a month. Okay. You can select one or several. You can say, hey, I want a weekly report and a monthly report, whatever you decide. And you choose your default sort order because the report's going to come again in an Excel file format. So here are your choices. And then whatever you decide, just click Save. And then from that point forward, AZTurboCourt will start emailing you those payment reports as you requested. And so what that might look like is something like this. You'll get an email, and it might say, you know, weekly payment report and the date range of that week and the dollar amount in fees paid that week, and then the report is attached. Or maybe you requested a monthly report, date range for the month, and whatever the fees were. Okay? So that's always available to you from your payment screen using preferences for reports. And then the very last thing I want to show you is if you are using saved payment methods, in your user menu, you're going to want to click on the Save Payment Methods link so that you can manage them. So this is by default showing me all of my active saved payment methods. Again, you're probably not going to have this many, but it's important to note that some of these are clickable blue links and others are not. The difference is that the ones that you yourself registered with AZTurboCourt, you can manage, right? They're your payment accounts. The ones that somebody else in your firm, who's let's say a financial administrator, who created and simply is giving you access to use them, they're going to show up here in your active payment method list, but you can't make any changes to them because you're not the one who set those accounts up. Okay? So let's take a quick look here. If you need to make any changes to any of your accounts, you can simply click on their name, and you have the ability to change that nickname as well as the status. Changing the nickname does not have any impact on the account itself. So this currently says Newer MC. I'm going to call it Newest MC. It does not screw up the payment with AZTurboCourt, because if you remember, the underlying key code, which is what AZTurboCourt uses to connect it with what the actual payment method is, that doesn't change. So I'm just changing my nickname for it, right, the way I name it. But the underlying key code doesn't change at all. It will also not screw up your reporting. So if you've already been making payments with this credit card when it was called Newer MasterCard, and now you're changing it to some other name and you're using it more and more, when you go to run a report, we know, again, the underlying code, and so we'll make sure we capture all of the payments that that particular payment method was used for, regardless of what it was named. Okay? The other thing is that you might decide to no longer use this credit card. Now, I happen to put the expiration date in the nickname just to help me for tracking purposes. We don't recommend And so I can see that this credit card is still good, but I may no longer want to use it, and I don't want it to keep showing up in NCourt because I don't want to inadvertently select it by mistake, right? Well, I can't delete it because it's payment information. I need it for reporting purposes and auditing purposes. So instead, what I'll do is I'll make it inactive. And when I click Save, now Karina's newer MC is no longer in my active list. And next time I go to NCourt, it's not going to be there. Okay? Now I can still run all my reports on it. I just won't use it again for new filings. Now let's say 6 months go by and you want to start using it again. Okay, well you don't have to re-register it with NCourt. Instead, all you need to do is reactivate it. And so from this very same screen, simply look for your inactive filings. Okay? And then click List. Find the one that you want, click on it, and simply change its status back to active and click Save. Okay? And there it is again. Now, the other important thing to note with regards to credit cards are the expiration date. AZTurboCourt does not, at this point in time, automatically expire your credit cards. Now, there's a number of reasons for that, but suffice it to say that we don't automatically expire your credit cards. And so if you've got a credit card that expires, such as this one I see here, what you're going to want to do is manually expire it, okay? And take it out of circulation, if you will, okay? Because if you were to try to use that again, NCourt would, of course, say it wouldn't go through. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, I had the credit card reissued. Everything's the same. It just has a new expiration date. Well, that's okay, but for the payment processors, it's still considered a brand new card, right? You can't simply like rename it to the new expiration date or something like that. Even if nothing else has changed to the payment processor, it's a brand new card. And so you need to expire the one that has expired and then register your new card if in fact you got a new card issued, okay? And so the way to do that is you don't have to wait for a filing to create a new payment method, a new credit card. Again, from this very same screen, the Save Payment Method screen, you'll see at the top here it says, click here to register a new credit card or bank account for your Arizona court filings. When I click on that, it takes me back to NCourt. Now, there's no filing associated right now. I'm actually pre-registering a payment method. And so here's where I would enter in my newly issued credit card information and billing information. For the card description, I could enter there the name that I'm going to use as the nickname in AZTurboCourt if I want. And then I would click Submit. NCourt, of course, would process that, making sure it's valid. And then they will return you to AZTurboCourt, where you'll have it as one of your saved payment methods again. Okay? So there you go. That is AZTurboCourt, and pretty much everything you need to know about filing, e-filing in Arizona. Now, of course, there's always going to be, as I mentioned, some other variations when you're initiating a case or filing into an existing case, depending on the way you answer the questions. But rule of thumb, again, just follow along with what's presented on screen, and you won't go wrong for that jurisdiction. So I'm going to go ahead and bring our training to a close. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being an AZTurboCourt customer. We very much appreciate your business. If you do want to reach out to us to let us know about functionality that would be helpful for you, or perhaps enhancements to an existing functionality, please do let us know. You can simply email us at customerservice@turbocourt.com, customerservice@turbocourt.com, and let us know what sort of functionality would be helpful to you or enhancements to make e-filing even better for you. So with that, I'll go ahead and bring this masterclass training to its completion. Thank you once again, and I wish you a good rest of your day. Okay, take care.